Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's shir. Tonight's shir is shir number 93 with Let's Get Real with Coach Menachem. And like I start off every week, telling everybody thank you for coming and being part of it. Again, the platform was really growing and exploding. Thank you to all the people that watch it every week and post it and they email people about it and telling people about the program. Please tell your family, friends. We have an amazing lineup coming, and there's so many amazing shirim that are we're just me and Menachem are blown away by what we see in store. Starting with tonight. Tonight's the bomb, but it's going to be unbelievable. And like I said, not every shir is for everybody, but pass it around, let people know about it, and be mechazik people. And it's definitely relevant for a lot of people. Again, if anybody wants to join the WhatsApp chat statuses every Sunday, I send out the shirim. You can WhatsApp me at 848-525-0066. Save my number in your phone, and every Sunday you'll get the flyer. If not, you could also go to Menachem Bernfeld's website, menachembernfeld.com, and he has an email sign up over there. You could sign up over there for the emails, and every Sunday you can get the flyers with the replays and all get the zachen. I want to start again, if anybody's watching the show on the YouTube replay, please click on the like button for Coach Menachem and subscribe. So every Monday morning, what time? 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, when we upload the videos, you get a notice that the video went up. You can watch it afterwards. Not everybody is able to come live. People can watch it later. Again, I want to start off first thanking our advertising sponsors, the Lakewood Scoop, for promoting us here in Lakewood, for Rabbi Chazak promoting us on Chazak channels. Special thank you to Chayla Kaufman, Shmuel Summer from JCN, for promoting us on all the Jewish digital platforms, the Jewish Content Network. Really appreciate it. And Coach Menachem shows collaborating with OK Clarity to bring greater health and wellness to the Jewish community around the globe. OK Clarity is the online platform for mental health support in the Jewish community. OK Clarity to find the best therapists, coaches, nutritionists, engage in forums, and stay inspired. Links will be sent out after the show. So please look forward to that. But what I wanted to start off saying over here, hold on. Just let me mention again that Menachem started off writing the books. Rabbi Issamar, I don't know if you know, but the Shir Hashem will be transcribed into a book. We're trying to do book 1 and 2 together. Every 40 shiurim, we're trying to make a summary and put together in a book. And
how many free copies do I get?
You get 100. Every show we do, you get another book. So, just to update you. So as of now, you share 93. You get 93 copies, Ma'at Hashem. And Menachem will send out the email, and people could help and be mishtatev. We're trying to put together a few dollars. It costs money to transcribe it and to put it in the order. It's going to be Ma'at Hashem published by Feldheim. So we're looking forward. Again, if anybody's here the first time, every Sunday night at 9:30 p.m., we have the shir. We have different abundant therapists, people who come from all different places. So tonight we have Rabbi Issamar, which is from all sides. Tonight we apologize. We usually always do this on a Sunday night, but me and Menachem had a Menachem Ken Zogen.
What are you gonna say?
We couldn't make it. Me and Menachem, we went on a trip together. The whole shul went together. So we came back late last night. We were in Europe, and it was a tremendous opportunity. We davened for everybody, for our families, for people that come, for the shir. So it was a tremendous thing, and it was the first time ever we have to push it off every summer. Shkoyach for being a sport about it, and coming Monday night.
Tuesday morning.
Okay, so next week, Sunday, March 6th, we're gonna have an amazing shir with Shulam Usha Tauber. He's Rabbi Zero Tauber's son. He's an unbelievable guy. He's a Heimische guy, and he's going to be speaking about a very interesting topic. We never really discussed this topic. It's really setting boundaries for younger children, a guide to raising healthy families. He's focusing on a really younger children, literally from the ages 2 and up. He has a whole mahalach in the system, and it seems to be very successful, and it should be a very powerful, deep program. Please join. Tell people to join. It should be something really, really special. And tonight we have the schus and the honor of having world famous Rabbi Issamar Ginzberg live from Eretz Yisrael, 4:30 a.m. Frisch, fire tugs, to make an amazing event here tonight. To mention be mechazik, thousands of people that will watch this. Before we get to him, we always do a gematria. So the gematria for tonight's share 93 is Sad Gimel. What does Sad Gimel stand for, Rabbi Issamar?
Rosh Hashanah.
We didn't discuss this before, and you can't have surprises like that.
Nothing's discussed beforehand. It's Sad Gadol. So that's Rosh Hashanah. I'm not saying anything more. Sad Gadol. You could put it together how you want it. You're zoichet to be Tzad Gimel. That's all I could say. Shir Tzad.
I thought it was Gimel Tzadikim. Coach Menachem, Rabbi Usha Parnas, and I'll be mishtatef in the.
Okay, that's exactly what it is. Again, so let's start off that before we get to Rabbi Issamar. Let's get an opening with Coach Menachem. Coach Menachem, open it up. Noch our trip and all our inspiration. What are we talking about tonight? What is Rabbi Issamar coming to talk about? Zug. I don't know why we're here.
Thank you very much for opening up. Thank you for Rabbi Ginzberg for being with us Tuesday morning, which is a big COVID. And tonight really is when people hear the word goals, sometimes people get scared. But the truth is, what is our goal? Bichlal and befrat. Bichlal could be in life. What are we looking for? Where are we going? What do we want? Could be a deep question, which a lot of people don't want to discuss even. Leave me alone. Let things go the way it is. It's pretty good. And that's it. And then others do try to figure out, do think, and maybe put down some goals, try it out. Some achieve, some don't. Some feel like failures because they tried once, twice, and they give up and then not really interested. So there's everybody, different types out there. Some live without goals at all. What do I need goals for? I do what I need to do. I daven, I learn, I have a job, take care of the kids, cook, clean the house, whatever it is. Isn't that what Hashem wants from me? Why do I need to think, what's the goal? Am I achieving my goals? So that's a good question. And I guess we'll talk about it. Then there are others who might have too many goals. And whenever you talk to them, there's every day, it could be sometimes every day, a different goal. And they might need somebody to help them out a little bit to focus, to know what they really want, because for sure they want to conquer the world. If only they would be able to. And every day you talk to them, they wish they can do that, and they want to do this, and it's unbelievable. How long can you go on like that with all the things that you want to do and not get to them? So, Baruch Hashem, we have tonight with us Rabbi Ginzberg, who can help us out a little bit. Well, I guess we'll start from the beginning, just the basic. What's a goal? Why do I need a goal? If I do have goals, how do I get there? What's the fastest way? Because we all want to get to the goal today, now. And then when I achieve my goals, that's when I'll be happy, right? That's what we think. And many times we do get to the goal, look around and say, wait a second, is this where I wanted to get to? And we're like, oops, I guess I want to get somewhere else. So that's what's the topic tonight. And Mr. Hashem, you'll have the opportunity to ask your questions to see if your goals are on the right, on the right track, if you have goals, or if you don't, how to start having goals. So thank you very much, Rabbi Ginzberg, for being with us. And Mr. Hashem, we should have a lot of siyata d'shmaya.
Beautiful opening. Again, before we get into it, Rabbi Issamar Ginzberg, I know him for many, many years personally, on a personal level. I hold his mishpacha. He says we're not mishpacha, but I hold we are mishpacha. We're going to argue about it later.
Both from the Shloah Kudish, I think, if you want to climb all the way up.
And we're also related other ways. But I know him for many, many years, and he's a very sought-after speaker. He's a tremendous, tremendous person. I'm going to read his bio, but since I posted that he's coming on, everybody from all walks of life said, this guy's unbelievable. He's murdic, such a vast knowledge, and very entertaining. So we're looking forward. I'm going to read his bio. So
listen, I want to tell you something. If you over promote it, if you overhype it, it's problematic, because then you set people's expectations so high that I'm bound to, not meet them. So let's keep it nice and low key.
My goal is to over promote.
So there's two kinds of speakers. There are speakers that give.
Let me read the bio. 1 second. Let me read the bio. Wait. We'll go to it. So Rabbi Issamar Ginzberg is the Kechni Rebbe. Rabbi Issamar Ginzberg is a sought-after speaker and advisor, particularly in areas of business advice, strategy, and psychology. He's spoken for audiences as varied as Google to Vakir Aftuni, and they're both very big companies, both billion-dollar companies.
Kair Avtuni.
Chabad, Satmar, the Jewish National Fund, and many others. He's been interviewed and mentioned in or written in dozens of publications, including the Entrepreneur magazine, the Washington Post, Fox, Hamadia, and the most famous one. You ready? I read it all the time. the Kuwait Times in the Reader's Digest. His Beis Medrash is located in Yerushalayim. Rabbi Issamar, it's chus to have you from Eretz Yisrael. Please tell us, give us your opening.
First of all, Tzad Gimel is tzrichim goals. The ultimate goal is the goal tzedek. I want to start by saying the following. I once heard many years ago a tape from Rabbi Friend, and it was a tape about parenting. I think I was a bocher. I don't know how I ended up with that tape. But anyway, and he said, I don't want anyone to think that the fact that I'm speaking on the topic of parenting means that I'm a paragon of perfect parenting. So it's about the message, not about the messenger. The fact we're talking about goals tonight doesn't mean that I have achieved all my goals or anything of the sort. It's a conversation, and Siyata Dishmaya, the goal is to be helpful to people, giving them tools that both I use in my own life, tools I use with the many people that Baruch Hashem I'm involved with. And I just don't want anyone to think that I have some magic ability to achieve all my goals, because that wouldn't be true or fair. I recently heard a story from, I don't know who said the story, but I recently heard a story about somebody who was going from, let's say, Muncie to Brooklyn. I don't remember the destination, or the people who have already heard the story will say, yeah, that story, and the people who haven't, doesn't matter what the destination was. And the person said, can you drive me? Can I get a hitch with you? He's like, it's on the way, I'll take you. He's like, no, it's not on the way. Make a long story short, he says, if my goal is my house, you're not on the way. If my goal is Gan Eden, then it's on the way. So the question is what the goals of somebody is, and that will very much change how they perceive the things that happen to them as they go through life. So as I was saying before, there's two kinds of speakers. There are speakers who are content speakers. They have to give good content. And then there are speakers who are very amazing speakers in the way they deliver what they have to say. So if you go to a speech because you want inspiration, and the person's there speaking in a very low voice and without any energy, you're not going to be very happy when you leave. However, if you're going to a medical conference for the latest diabetes information, and the doctor was an old fellow with a hoiker, and he sort of sat there and mumbled, as long as you got the information you were looking for, you wouldn't really care about the delivery style. If he delivers it in anything better than a monotone, it's hakarevach. So when it comes to before, when we were discussing about what people expect to get out of this, and that I'm an amazing speaker, hopefully the delivery won't be too bad. Hopefully the content at least will be amazing.
So you want to jump into the questions? You want to give a little opening about goals?
There's a famous Maisa of Reb Chaim Kanievsky that somebody asked him. I don't know if the story is true or not, but the story is still a good story. Somebody asked him if you're allowed to play basketball on Shabbos, and he asked, "What's this basketball?" And they explained to him, and he said, "It's better to put the ball in the net before Shabbos." Now, just like in hockey, for example, it's called scoring a goal. So the person could have perfect hand-to-eye coordination, but at the end of the day, if the puck doesn't get into the net, it's not a goal. So it's interesting when people refer to goals, what are goals and what are aspirations? Meaning people say goals are a dream with a deadline. But if I, as an example, this is a life insurance example that I sometimes use in business advice. So if you have a goal, I'm going to sell $1 million policy today, you're asking for failure, because I have news for you. You don't control if you will or will not sell $1 million or a $10 million or a $10 policy today. If you set yourself a goal to make 100 phone calls today, you're much more likely to achieve that goal because it's a goal that you control. So as soon as you pick a goal that's within your power to reach, you're that much more likely not to be disappointed and to actually hit that goal because it's within your power to reach. When someone sets a goal like I'm going to live to 105, I'm not so sure that's a goal you control. You can say I have a goal to eat healthy because I want to live a long, happy life, but to actually pick a goal that's not in your power is not a goal. I'm ready for questions, and each question I'll probably end up going off on a tangent, but go ahead.
Okay, this is the opening. I really want to get into goals, and there's obviously a lot of goals that people have. People have financial goals, people have personal goals, and people don't even know what goals are. And I think we should discuss tonight what are goals. We'll get into that. So let's take a poll. Let's get from the oil. Let's see what they're holding, and then we'll jump into questions. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Here we go. Okay, I hope everybody can see it. Here we go. The question tonight is, what do you think will likely happen to most people's goals after this watching this year tonight? It means you're going to watch this year tonight. We're going to talk about goals, what goals are. What do you think is going to happen with people? Do you think that A, people will confirm that their goals are correct and they're on the right track? We're just guessing what's going to happen tonight. Option A. Option B, realizing their goals are not realistic and try to rethink their goals. Or option C, realizing now that they never really had goals in the first place. Those are the three options. What do you think? Well, after tonight's show, what are we going to get out of it? That's option A. Option B, and this is a tough one. And Menachem, this is my personal question. I thought it was a very good question. Hope everybody can answer honestly. What are your real financial goals? Be honest with yourself. Three options. Ready? A, living comfortable and paying your bills debt-free. Is that your financial goal? You just want to pay your bills, live debt-free. Option B is acquire millions of dollars for personal safety. Not to show it off. That means you live the same lifestyle, but you make millions and millions of dollars just to put it away. Or option C, would love to make millions of dollars to be powerful and respected. So you want the money because you want to have that power that comes with it. What's your real financial goal? Try to be honest. I'm choosing number 3, so I'm just telling you honestly. Okay, let's go. 10 seconds. 5 seconds, and everybody answer it, and then we'll share with everybody. No, Menachem, you voted?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we'll share it, and then we're going to jump into questions, okay? Okay, the first question. What do you think will likely happen tonight to most people? What goals after watching this show tonight? 20% of people say they feel that they'll confirm their goals are correct and on the right track. 38% of people feel realizing their goals are not realistic and need to rethink them. 41% of people realizing now that they never really had goals in the first place. Those are the three options. So it seems like most people are going to realize they never really had goals in the first place. That's what people think tonight. Okay, the second question. It's a good question. What are your real financial goals? Be honest with yourself. 68% of people, or someone say they just want to live debt free, pay the bills, they're happy check to check, living comfortable. They're good with that. 29% of people want to acquire millions of dollars for personal safety, not to show it off, but just to, to have, cash in the bank. And 3% want to make lots of money to be powerful and respected. So that's the results here. If someone has episodes looking at them, what do you think of the results?
Not surprised that most people realize they never had goals in the first place.
Okay, Menachem, let's jump into questions. Okay, Menachem?
Sure.
Okay, before we do the questions, again, we're here. We have Rabbi Issamar Ginzberg. He speaks for companies and he's a tremendous speaker. And if you have any questions, text me, Asher Parnas, and we'll make a line of people that want to ask live. And we'll ask them questions. And we have a bunch of questions that came in. We're going to go through them. Menachem, why don't you start the questions first? Get into it. The questions that came in.
All right. So just a second. Here we go. So this is a guy who has a business on Amazon. So he writes that he's been doing Amazon for a while and it's been good, but now it's pretty much status quo. And he wants to know where to take it. I guess he wants to know what kind of goal he should have or what would be his next step.
Okay. First of all, that question about Amazon, I know this is about personal growth. I don't want to take it off too much into the world of business, but it's kedai to at least for a minute or 2 or 3 discuss the business aspect of it, and then we can come back to the self-improvement aspect of it. Amazon is a platform where, as everybody listening, probably, if anyone doesn't know what Amazon is, I want a bracha from you. My name is Issamar Ben Chaya. Amazon is a platform where you can buy things and sell things. Now, Amazon started by being a seller of books, became a seller of everything, and then they also opened it that not only are they selling stuff, but other people can sell stuff on their platform, which means there's two businesses in Amazon. One is Amazon buys from you. The other is you sell, kind of like eBay, you sell to the Amazon customer. The only difference between Amazon and eBay essentially is they don't tell you who your customer is. They don't give you the customer information. They essentially take care of the sending the product to the customer, especially when they're doing the fulfillment. I don't want to get into that nakuda, but essentially, when Chazal tell us if a person should put a shlish bekarka, a third in liquid assets, a third in semi-liquid assets, and a third in hard assets, the reason why Chazal is telling us to do that is not just like, it's not like puradim, it's not some kind of chayk. It's because a person has to be diversified in what they do, just like a house has multiple pillars. And the reason why it needs multiple pillars is if it has 4 pillars and a car chas v'shalom crashes into the corner of a house, the house won't collapse because it still has 3 pillars holding up the second floor, even though obviously the house would be damaged. So when people sell on Amazon, when someone says I sell on Amazon, if what that means is I sell in one place and that's Amazon, then is it a business? Well, it's more of a business than it used to be, especially since there are now companies, non-Jewish and Jewish companies, which are now buying popular Amazon selling brands. So therefore, there is a way to exit that business and make money. But is it a business in the traditional sense, which is if you have a business that only has one customer, what happens if that customer goes away? What happens if Amazon shuts you down? It's ma'aseh b'chol yom. When I spoke at Ed Rosenberg's event a couple of years ago, people were upset when I came down, saying you bring a guy to speak at an Amazon conference and he tells us to watch out from Amazon. It's not that I'm the world's biggest genius. It was just pretty obvious to me that Amazon was going to start competing and using all the information. And Jeff Bezos was actually saying that he would be taking all the information he would gain from all the sellers, and then he would decide essentially how to best use that information, which for the most part means unless you're selling sweaters for people with 3 hands, which Amazon's not going to get into that business because there's not a big enough market for it. Any business that's big enough for Amazon to succeed, they have enough money, they have enough, they have everything they need to go into that business and to compete with the people that are selling on their platform, and from whom they're getting all the data as to what sells and what's good and so on and so forth. And they can work on lower margins than you. Besides the fact that they have more money and more buying power, they also don't have to pay Amazon. They don't have to pay themselves for selling. So as far as is Amazon a business, I'll leave that question to the viewers. You can make that another poll question if you want. Is it or is it not a business? But it's certainly not a business that is a safe business in the sense that whatever you're selling, are you selling it on other platforms? Do you have a way to get your customer to reach out to you? That's why all these companies are offering extended warranties or prizes if you fill out give them 5 stars, all that kind of stuff. Whether or not Amazon allows it is not the point of this conversation. The point is that if you are diversified in what you're selling, how you're selling, or at least you understand that Amazon is not there for the long term, it's a way to get customers that you could bring them to your own website, to your own brand to buy from you long term. Amazon is an amazing tool. Is it a business? We'll let the olam decide.
Okay.
Let's jump into this question. It's a general question. I'm looking to go into business after being in Koil now as the first guy coming, fresh guy to go into the business world. Think of doing some type of online business. Can you please explain to me what a real business is and how it works? Just a general, what is it? What is a business? What's a functioning business? Describe it to us.
Okay, great question. Favorite example for this is someone tells me, okay, business. I say, what is a business? Let's use a dentist as an example. So the successful dentist, my dentist when I was a kid, his name was Dr. Jenko on 14th Avenue and 55th Street approximately. Italian guy, very nice guy. And he has a business, right? He's a successful dentist. He has his receptionist and his hygiene, whatever they call the hygienist. And he has a wonderful, busy dental practice. Here's the question. One day, you or I come into the dentist and we're greeted by the secretary who says, by the way, your dentist today is Dr. Smith. And some guy who you never met before says, hi, come. Yeah, I'm going to be your dentist today. Here would be another good poll question. Would you sit down in the chair and go, or would you say, I'm sorry, I asked for Dr. Jenko. You're giving me Dr. Smith. It's not what I signed up for. What's the difference between those two things? If you won't go to Dr. Smith, this is not a business. It's a dental practice. He may be making a nice living, but a business is es nicht. How can the doctor turn his practice into a business to make it actually have a value of its own? Well, number one is when he turns old enough that he starts thinking about retirement, he doesn't retire from one day to the next. He brings in another dentist, and he has that dentist and himself working one alongside the other, so that everyone in the office gets comfortable with the other dentist. And therefore, over time, he can essentially transfer the goodwill that he has with his patients over to the next dentist, and then that practice has a value. In fact, many times when practices are sold, they're sold by the amount of patients that will come back for a second visit by the new dentist, which means it's not about how many people will accept Dr. Smith the first time, it's how many people will actually come back to Dr. Smith the second time, which shows that the patient has transferred totally from his previous dentist to this dentist. So now, when someone says, what is a business? A business consists of multiple components. Number one, there is a difference between a job, even a good paying job, even a job that you own your own job. So if you are self-employed, do you have a business or do you have a job from which you cannot be fired? Chinese people are willing to spend more money than Jewish people buying a business, because if you go out and buy a business to buy a restaurant, you look at, okay, how much money will I make if I buy the restaurant? The Chinese guy looks at the business and says, okay, I want a job with job security I can never be fired from, that makes me a nice living. Therefore, his expectations of that business are much lower than yours, and therefore he can afford to spend much more for that same business. Next point of what a business is. If you have I'll call it a business, just for argument's sake, if you have a business that can hire people and pay the people, and the business is left with more profit than it had before it hired the person, then yes, it is a business, because the business is actually it's actually a platform which can grow beyond the amount of hours that the business owner, or let's call him possibly self-employed, well-meaning, well-earning person who thinks he has a business but doesn't. The differentiation point between those two would be, which shows if it's a business or not, is if the business can make money when the business owner is not there, when he's on a plane, if he hires more people, and the business can therefore make more money. So therefore, what decides if it's a business or not is if the business actually makes money above and beyond and without the owner of that business. I shouldn't say that's what a business is. I should say that's what a successful business is.
Okay, Meredith. Okay, we have a bunch of live questions. Can we get into some live questions?
Sure.
Okay, first one live, you're on.
Yeah, hi. I guess this segues into what you were talking about. I have been working for many years. I'm close to retirement. I am a therapist. I've been doing some private on the side. I'm thinking of trying to do only private. I'm not very assertive. Like I'm worried about how I'm going to make my fee. What happens when people cancel? What happens if they keep me on the phone and I'm not charging? How do I set up those limits? I don't know that I want somebody working for me. I'm not sure I really want to grow a business, but I definitely want to have a good income.
Okay, very good question. I'll start with a story which may not be directly relevant to what you said for you, but I think it's something that'll give you insight and all the rest of the Chashuva people watching and listening. I have a client who is a certain kind of therapist, and a lot of their work is done with the government. So they go to, for argument's sake, a school, and they're paid by the government to go and speak in that school or work in that school, or what have you. Now, in that particular case, the reason why they reached out to me was because the government in their particular field caps the amount that the therapist can be paid. So let's say, I don't know if this is true in your case, but let's say in this scenario, this therapist was only able to charge $100 per client. Now, in private practice, this same therapist is in very high demand in a very niche area, and is able to command $1,500 or $2,000 or $5,000 in fees a day, much more than they can make when they're doing the work in the schools. The problem is that when they're not working, the schools is a big part of the business, and they weren't so sure that they could survive without having that business, even though the money they were getting for those sessions was much lower. What I came up with for them, Siyata Deshmaya, was I said, ask the schools if they have a budget for educational materials. And they did. And we created a workbook for this therapist that every time this therapist came to a school, they said, okay, how many people will I be speaking to? 100? Okay, so in addition to my fee of X, whatever the government cap was at that point for this particular thing, you'll also need 100 workbooks for your 100 students. Since that money was for materials, which came from a different budget, they were able to achieve both getting the fee without violating the cap the government was willing to pay, and at the same time, on their end, make much more money because they had something else to offer. Now, if you don't want to be constantly giving dollars for hours, then growing beyond that could mean hiring an employee. It could also mean doing webinars, seminars, CDs, books, leveraging, instead of one-on-one therapy, group therapy, which in which case you can make much more money, because even though everyone's paying less, if you have 5 or 10 or 20 people there all together, it's much more than you'd be getting if you're doing one person at a time. So the shorter answer to your question is, not necessarily you have to hire an employee or employees, but you do have to think and figure out ways in which you can profit, which would not involve you doing what you've been doing till now, but doing something different, either personally or by publishing a book, as an example.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's go. We have tons of questions over there. Everyone wants to ask you questions. Let's go. Chaisar, you're on next.
Oh, hi. I have the problem, I think, with I think long-term goals versus short-term. I've always kind of drifted a lot in my younger days, but Baruch Hashem, I feel more grounded in certain things, but I still find it easier to set maybe shorter term, clean my room, do a certain project. But whenever I do it, try to set a long-term goal, it seems that I get a lot of curveballs. It's like the saying, God, man plans and God laughs. Now, I don't know if am I better off just sticking to short-term goals? I mean, how are you able to even stick to a long-term without distractions? Things there seems to be a lot of impediments in the outside world, the real world. Hello.
Okay, a very good question. So 2 points. Number one is that the famous question: how do you eat an elephant? I mean, obviously an elephant's not kosher, but how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a
cut it
time.
in pieces. Yeah.
Right. So when a person is making goals, they should always be trying to make those goals, essentially divide those goals into sub-goals and sub-goals until they're bite-sized. And when they're bite-sized, they're easy to do and easy to cross off the list, which makes them much more likely to happen. These huge goals, people have aspirational goals and these big goals they want to achieve, but especially when the goal is too big, it's unachievable because it's just people just fail along the way. They don't get there because the goal is too big. The other point is that many people have too many goals, and in that case, a tip I once read someplace, which I found extremely helpful, was that a person should make a long list of all the goals they want to achieve, and after they have that list, they should make numbers next to each one. So, for example, the first one is number 1, the second one is so as they go down the list, the first one is number 1, the 10th thing on the list is number 2, right? So they keep scanning the list and making numbers, numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what their goals are. And then when they're finished, they should rewrite that page to have the first 5 goals that are on that list on that page. And that is your to-do list. The rest of the goals are on your to-don't list. Because if you have too many things to do, none of them really get done. If you have a shorter number of goals, it's much easier to accomplish those goals. And once you get one of those 5 crossed off, you can then add one from the to-don't list onto the to-do list.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Let's jump to the next one. Let me just unmute him. Hold on 1 second. Okay, you're on.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Thank you. I was just wondering, when someone has a nice, well-paying job, how do you decide when to move on and open your own?
Okay, very good question. Amazing question. I'm going to give a longer answer for this one. I'm sure there's many people who have a same or similar question. Either they were planning to ask it or in their heads. there are many different, first of all, some people are good at starting businesses, some people are not good at starting businesses, but they'd be great at buying a business. Different people are good at different phases of a business. By the same token, some people are better employees than they would be bosses. Some people are better bosses than be employees. They wouldn't manage as an employee one day without getting fired. Maybe one day they would, fine. Sometimes there's a guy who's working for a business and then the boss wants to retire and sell and he buys the business. Even though he wasn't planning to own a business, suddenly he does. There's a guy who owns a business and then the business next door, which is a different type of business, is for sale. So he goes and he buys that business, and 10 years later, he owns 4 stores in that same shopping center, because that's just the way the Irish doesn't give feet. That's where opportunity led him. That is different from a jeweler who has a jewelry store, and then he finds that a jewelry store in the next town is for sale, and a jewelry store across town is for sale. Fast forward 20 years, and he has 50 jewelry stores across the United States. It's coming each time from a very different angle. So first of all, asking when is the time for a person to go on their own is a little bit of a tricky question, because not always is there a time to go on your own. Sometimes a person should not go on their own. And at the same time, it's not always a matter of leaving what you're doing now to do something on your own. Sometimes it's not necessarily a bright idea to give up something you got, especially if it's paying well, to go do something else. Now, I'll grant that if somebody's in a job where he's not making ends meet, and he gives up that job, even though he's giving up the little bit of lifeline that he has. And again, I'm not advocating everyone give notice, even now while they're listening. At least wait till the end of this webinar to submit your resignation. But a person can find the time to do something, especially in this world where people do so many things online and all over the world. And just like I can live in Eretz Yisrael and run a Baruch Hashem, an American-based business and a public company and a whole lot more things while living in Yerushalayim, Baruch Hashem, and having a shul. The opportunities out there today do not require you to give up something, especially something well-paying, without first testing that what you're thinking of doing actually has a good shot of having hatzlacha.
Okay, Mary, they're going to be summa. You ready?
I'm here. Keep going.
Okay, he's on. Let's go.
Okay. Shkoyach,
By the
first of
way,
all.
I apologize for moving. I'm in a office chair which moves. And next time, Bernfeld, you have me on, if that's a goal I should have from being on Coach Menachem's show here, and Bernfeld, remind me next time not to take a chair that has wheels. Go ahead.
Got it.
So first of all, Yashikoyach, you answered my question primarily. I as well am a therapist, and Baruch Hashem, I'm very busy. I'm in my own practice. In the long term, I don't see myself having associates working under me or doing group type of stuff. Is there a viable conservative way to sort of attempt to create a sort of another business, whether it's real estate or something of that nature, where I can slowly put aside? Is that something in the long term to be able to lessen my need to clock so many hours?
Okay, great question. 2 points. One is that real estate is an investment, not a business. Now, of course, a person can be in the real estate business, which is, managing this, that, and the other. But first of all, to have an investment outside of what you do and put away money someplace is certainly a good idea. And it's certainly something you can do while having a practice. So it's not a steer in any way. The second part of the answer is that every person who, using yourself as an example, I don't know if you didn't mention in your question that I mentioned previously something like doing a product or a service based on what you do, or something catering to your current clients. But there's certainly something you have over myself or over the next guy, which is that you have an audience that you know that needs things, whether or not it's your, whether or not it's therapy, or whether or not it's, as an example, a product you create, or even whether it's something else, but you happen to know that the people that you service have a need for that product. And I'll give you an example. My grandfather, I remember when I was a bocher, he was in the hospital, he had his voice box removed. He was a great Chayid, and they told him he has something in his voice box, and he had a choice of basically chemo or taking out his voice box. He said, listen, the Levium used to, give the Eibishter their avodah until a certain age, and then it was over. And I'm, okay, I was a Baltula for many years. Now I'm gonna give it up, basically. So he went to the hospital. He had his voice box taken out, and they had the first day he was in the hospital. I came to him, and he wanted to talk, but he couldn't talk after the surgery. So he would take a pen and paper. He would say, he showed me the pen and paper, and then he would start writing me messages. And I would ask him, and then he would write another message. Anyway, within a couple of minutes, I kept going to the nurse's station for more and more paper, because every time he wanted to say something, every few conversations, basically, we used up all the paper that we had taken. The next day I came to the hospital, and they brought him a magic slate. Now, a magic slate is something that I don't know how to describe it exactly. Maybe picture could be pulled up of it, but basically it's a white sheet. It's a white like plastic melamine sheet or something covered with like a pink, very flexible plastic, kind of like a fruit roll up, I guess. And then you write on it, and then you pick it up, it erases, and you can put it back down and write something else. So you know what I'm referring to, right? If you understand, probably the people listening and watching also understand. Make a long story short, it never occurred to me that a hospital would be buying in bulk for non-children magic slates. But once I know that the hospital is buying magic slates, then I can go. So now, there are ways to look at, as for an example, on Amazon, any product to see what other products people are looking for. So as an example, kosher food, Jewish books are probably linked, even though they're in different categories. You would not expect people who are buying magic slates to also be buying whatever people of 80 years of age buy. But when you start being just like online, you can link those two. And I don't remember off the top of my head. There's a site that I sometimes give out. I don't remember the name off the top of my head. If anyone wants it, email me, Blina there. Rabbi Issamar at gmail.com, RABBIISSAMAR@gmail.com. I'll say it again at the end. And then I'll send it to you. I just forgot. I think it's Yasiv, YASIV.com, if I remember correctly. But in any case, that will show you as an example, two products that have nothing to do with each other, but they're linked by the fact that the same person is buying both. Okay? Now, while that example is not directly related to you, you can think about what the people that you currently serve need or are a good market for, that you can service that market, which is a much better idea than just randomly going into another business so that you can make money without just clocking as many hours as you can. So the question is, what do you have? People come to me, they say, I want to do this, that, and the other, or what business should I go into? And I say, what does your father do? What does your shver do? And people are like, I don't want to work with my father. What? Doesn't matter. Just tell me what he does. It tells me about how you grew up. It tells me about what knowledge you might have in other areas besides what you do for example, you yourself, I don't know how you grew up or what your mishpacha around you did. At the end of the day, every person ends up with unique insights and connections that can help them move forward, even if it wasn't something that they thought of before.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, before I take the next question, I want to say a more of a general story, which is that I once had a client come to me and say, I want you to help me with a business. Anyway, I said, what did you do till now? The guy was in probably his 40s. What did you do till now? And he said, it doesn't matter. I don't want to tell you. I'm like, okay, don't tell me. We started discussing what he wants to do. We finished the whole conversation. Be'ez Hashem, Siyat L'Shmai. We decided we're going to work further together. I created a plan for him, what we're going to do next. And then I said, just out of curiosity, I won't charge you, but just tell me, what did you do till now? He says, okay, I didn't want to spend time on it on the clock, but if you want to hear, I'll tell you. He said, I invented the first computerized system to tell if people are stealing from their companies or not. So for example, before Walmart hires an employee, some employees that are hired by Walmart end up stealing. It's called shrinkage or breakage, stealing stuff from the stores. So what can the company do to try to eliminate theft? So he invented a computerized way which he felt would be able to identify if someone was likely to steal or not, if they were hired. How does Walmart test if such a program works or not? Well, very simple. You give it to a certain percentage, let's say half the employees. Just a second, please. excuse me, you give it to half the employees and not to the other half, and then you wait a year and you see who was fired for stealing, and then you match if they were more likely to have stolen if they were hired without having them taken the computerized test, or if they're more likely to have stolen meaning if they did or did not, how did that affect the percentage of people who were stealing? And surprise of all surprises, people who did not take his test, meaning say people who he identified as being likely to steal, were 10,000% more likely to steal than people who he did not identify as people likely to steal. I said, okay, thank you for telling me that. I want to explain to you that even though you didn't see that it had anything to do with the new business you want to do, which in his case was actually he wanted to go into the field of risk management, and I won't go into now what risk management is, but it's not exactly what he was doing till now. I said, but now that you gave me that piece of information, I can actually write you a LinkedIn profile. I can actually help you create a brochure and a website that doesn't make you brand new in this field that you're doing. It takes what you've done till now, and it says, I was the person to create the first computerized test for theft, which is used in companies around the world. I think some of his clients actually were, if I remember correctly, it's been a while. OSIM, Gap, and Superfarm were three of his customers. And now I've gone from dealing with one little tiny piece of a business to doing risk management from the top down for the entire business. And Baruch Hashem, that worked. So it just dovetails with the previous point about what you've done till now and what you grew up with and what your family business is. Even though it may have nothing to do with what you do, it really lends a lot to Sai, other things you can do to make money, and Sai to build your backstory, which helps you become more successful at what you actually do. Next question, I'm ready.
Okay, you're on.
So I have a question. I'm actually in financial services in the advisory world. When you work with a financial firm, work with a firm in Florida, and I'm curious your take on this. When we evaluate a business, the business owner, right? The biggest ways we help out a business is identifying free cash flow. And especially when it comes to a person, we have taking on a new client. The guy makes $200,000, right? I sat with many people this past week already. Today's only Monday. And the guy's sitting in front of me and he makes $200,000. Unbelievable, right? Pretty nice income. But he's spending as a household 180, 190. So his free cash flow is garbage. So when it comes to evaluating his assets, investing, long-term retirement, if he doesn't have free cash flow, he's not going to make it there. So we identify as one of the greatest assets that a person could have, and we work towards is building free cash flow as a business, as a person, individually, and so on. What is your take? Do you believe as well, I don't know if potato or not, whatever, or your business mind, that free cash flow is in the top 10 ways of really making sure the business is strong? Also, in the public world, public companies. Is that number one? Number two, where do you put significance on free cash flow?
Okay, very good question. I'm going to answer it probably a little bit differently than you might think I would. First of all, just for the benefit of everybody listening, every person's expenses manage to magically grow faster than their income. If every single person listening got a $100,000 raise tomorrow when they walked in, as much as they think they'll be able to save that 100,000 or most of the 100,000, they would easily suddenly be spending more than 100,000 more than they're making now. Some of the reasons for that is because when somebody doesn't have money as much as they need, and then suddenly they get an amount of money they didn't have before, what happens is that they say, oh, really have to take care of X or buy a new car or this or that, and suddenly the money's all gone. Obviously, it's very important for a person, especially someone who's not disciplined, which is most of us, including myself, to do things that will force them to be disciplined about it. As an example, even this, the fact that I'm speaking here tonight, same thing with all my clients. When people want an appointment, I give them a link to my calendar. If it's on my calendar, I show up. If you ask me, when do you have time? I'd rather push you off a week because by nature, that's how I am. So what a person always wants to do in a money situation is you want to pay yourself first. Yeah. You want to do things, even though, and I'm going to get some flack for this, but I could care less. Life insurance is not a good investment, but if the reason you're buying life insurance, I'm talking about whole life now as opposed to term, by the way, a person should have term. That's not an investment. That's simply protecting your family in case chas v'shalom the unthinkable happens. But whole life insurance, as a general rule, is a bad investment. why do people do it and why is it kedai and why do I have such a policy as an example? Because it forces me to put money into it. And if I don't put the money there, the money's going to go someplace else and get lost. So it's a way to essentially keep me on the straight and narrow. Next nakuda of your question is that I don't think that. Sorry for shaking. Free cash flow is very important. We're not going to get into the different ways of doing accounting, anything like that. A person or a business should have money to put aside, and that money that they put aside should not choke the business. I know somebody who essentially pays his, let me see if I get this right, he pays his mortgages every month with the money, meaning to say he pays every month his mortgage with the money from the following month's rent. So there was 1 month where he wanted a large amount of money, and this happens in businesses all the time. So he basically raided the kitty. He took all that money instead of paying his mortgages, and he took that money and did something else with it. And now what he does is he pays his mortgages late. He pays a little late fee. He pays every single month, essentially 1 month late, with the money that comes in from the following month's mortgages. I'm not an accountant, and I'm not a Grace Cup in, even though as I said before, Baruch Hashem, I control a public company, but I'm not, as far as what a person should earn and what a person should spend, a person should be trying to earn more than they spend. And as a general rule, I find it's easier to help a person earn more than try to help them spend less. Somebody once came to me, a financial coach, and he told me he was helping people that had money, financial issues. And I told him, it sounds like a great idea for a tzedakah, but it doesn't sound like such a great idea for a business. And time Nebuch proved me right, because the people who were hiring him within a month or 2 or 3 didn't have any more than money to pay him, because the reason they came to him, they were tight. So it's kedai for people, and Baruch Hashem, it's very possible for 99.9% of people to earn more in their business or in their job than they're earning right now. And I can expand upon that if you like.
Maybe we should stop right there. And I know there are a lot of people who are looking to just start off to figure out how they can make more money than they spend. And for some reason they don't manage month after month. Where should somebody start? You talk about a young couple or even somebody in business for years, but for some reason they spend more, and logically it makes sense. Just don't spend so much.
Rabbi Ginzberg, you know, Rabbi Issamar Reisman, he said it's Gula Fashiros. You ever heard it?
Let me hear.
He said that the guy is making $100,000 income, whatever, he's him and his wife, they have a bunch of kids, he's making $150,000. Says one day he gets a raise, and the boss gives him a $50,000, huge raise. Comes home, he tells his wife, Baruch Hashem, got this $50,000 raise. Said, I think, we didn't go to Eretz Yisrael in a long time. I think now we have, now for this, we should make sure we go to Eretz Yisrael. I said, okay, fine, let's go to Eretz Yisrael. I said, also besides Eretz Yisrael, I said, the kitchen we have, we didn't redo it in 20 years. I think we should do a little facelift, you know what I mean? And then she said, by the way, I didn't want to bring this up, but now that you mention it, we have to change the dining room, the living room, his $50,000 raise turned into $120,000 debt. Said the biggest goal to become an oisha, shut your mouth. Okay.
But the nakud is very true, which is when people get a raise. Now I want to discuss something here for a second. I once read an article for the Jerusalem Post years ago. You can probably find it online. It's called "The Mental Buckets of Business." Just Google "the mental buckets of business." It should come right up. And in that article, I essentially explained that when people get a tax refund check, they spend it very differently than they spend their paycheck. The money's coming from the same place, in the sense that you essentially overpaid your taxes in order to get that big check at the end of the year. It doesn't matter. It's like when people win the lottery. When people see money differently because of how they got it, they spend it very differently. And when a person becomes aware, like a lot of things in life, when you become aware of the fact that that's how your mind is wired, it becomes that much easier to actually, spend it properly. Now, as the example you gave of Rabbi Issamar Reisman, how about we take that $50,000 raise and we put it away, and when next year's $50,000 raise, we do all those things you just said.
Okay, let's get into it. There's so many questions. Rabbi Issamar, here we go.
But just by the way, I don't think that the questions like the one before, even though it was a good question about free cash flow. If somebody else asks such a question, I want you to be the bad guy, and I want you to essentially gently.
Trying to again focus tonight on personal goals of your own personal financial or your own personal whatever it is, but your personal goals, not detailed business questions. Okay, Shlomo, you're
on. Thank you for taking my question. When a person has an option of investing in a business, there is such as called a seasonal business, or as they call it, opportunists. People who go into the business of COVID testing and such, that's one kind of business. Then there's another thing of a person taking an opportunity. For an example, a conversation I had today with a friend of mine, he's in the door industry, and he says shipments are backed up and there's no doors to be found in the industry. So the whole construction industry is backed up. Investing for now, jumping in and investing in a local manufacturing, door manufacturing, for an example, is that a smart idea to do, or rather focus on something that, as you said before, that my family's in, something that I grew up with, and something that I know better, that it's gonna, bring out my character better. But again, the money is gonna be, of course, not so rewarding.
Is your question more, should I invest in something new that I'm not sure where it's gonna go, or something that I'm more comfortable with? Is that the question?
Yes, that's number one. The question. The second question is
I can't remember both. Let's answer the first question first, then we'll get the second question. But you forgot the rule that I charge cousins double.
Oh.
Okay. So now, let's pick COVID testing. It's a great example. When COVID started, I didn't know if it was going to be a week, a month, or for the rest of our lives. Nobody knew, really. So people who jumped in on something like that took advantage of an opportunity that presented itself, which was on essentially, in many ways, a level playing field. There's a very rich Scottish guy. His name is Duncan Bannatyne, a very wealthy man, and he made his fortune in nursing homes. And he says, I didn't have any secret information. I didn't know anything different than anybody else. I read in the newspaper that Margaret Thatcher, who was then the Prime Minister of England, was going to start paying, like Medicaid, kind of like Section 8, was going to start paying for senior citizens to be taken care of in senior care homes. So I went and I built a senior care home. It was just a matter of seeing what everyone else saw, but actually doing something about it. Now, one of the milest of things, I'm no Bitcoin fan, but one of the milest of things like Bitcoin or things like COVID testing is the fact that instead of looking at something and saying, oh, this industry is already saturated, you have an opportunity to jump on. Now, does that mean I would go and spend $1 million building such a thing? No, not necessarily. When it comes to the question of the doors, as an example, would I go open a door manufacturer in the United States? So there's 2 points to that. Number one is, you might be aware of this, is that there are many companies and organizations and federal government, etc., who have to buy American-made products. Therefore, doing such a company, assuming you're competitive with other manufacturers and assuming there are actually manufacturers out there who are in the United States, for example, manufacturing doors. If there's nobody doing doors, I might be worried. It might be more like a COVID test the first day of COVID, opening a testing center. But especially if there's other people out there doing it, that means there's a market for it. I mean, that means that it's possible to do and succeed. The fact that there's a backlog and shipping in China and the whole 9 yards and tariffs and you name it, means that yes, that probably is a good business to go into if I could go into it without spending a fortune that I don't have. Would I borrow money from everyone I know to go do that? I'm not so sure. If I had the money or I had somebody wealthy who was willing to front the money, knowing that it's a risky idea, but if it works, we'll make a lot of it, I certainly would go ahead and do it. I hope that answered the first question. What's the second one?
It answered all the questions.
Thank you, cousin.
Yeah, I was afraid you're going to charge double, so I fit it in all one.
Okay, Rabbi Issamar, let's go. Here we go. Next question, you're on.
Yeah, hi. I was wondering, is college these days worth it? Because I see most people like Mark Zuckerberg, all these people didn't go to college. Like, is it worth it to go, or it's like a bracha levatala?
Okay, that's a very good question. To be, let's say, a doctor, you have to go to the medical school. Even if you read a ton of books, you can't actually go into an operating room with the white coat and the pass that lets you pass the magnetic thing, unless you're actually a doctor. Unless you have the piece of sheepskin or lambskin on your wall that says University of whatever, that says you're a lawyer, except in the state of California, I believe. You can't take the bar exam unless you went to law school. Therefore, in those fields or any field which requires licensing, you have to go through the schooling to get that license. As far as is college kedai in general, well, it depends what you're looking to do with the college degree. Many companies will put an ad in the paper saying looking to hire, for whatever the position is, must have master's degree or must have bachelor's degree or greater. They don't care if your degree is in French literature or if your degree is in Bachelor of Talmudic Law. But what they do need is they want to see that you actually have a degree. Why? Because most people at the age of, let's just say, 17, stop retaining new information. And that's just, by the way, one of the ways Mikam Yisrael, that because Baruch Hashem Yidden do Yiddish Sachen, look at Sfurim, do things. Yidden are different in the sense that they're always, hopefully, gaining knowledge and new material. Even you go to a bar mitzvah and you're listening to some speeches, you get new divrei Torah, you get new things in your brain which you want to remember to say over at the Shabbos table. So there's that element of being able to retain information as an adult. And by the way, there's something called the retention pyramid, which some people might want to Google. Pyramid as in Mitzrayim, the pyramids, retention pyramid, which is the more you do with information, the more you remember it. But back to the question, when you are hired for a job, the reason why they want to see that degree, and again, not caring what the degree is about, is because the degree shows that this person was able to retain and be tested on new information as an adult. So if you're going to go and try to get any job like that, you do need that degree, because the degree is what gets you through the door. Even the degree itself doesn't help much. If you're the kind of person who can, who is a autodidact, or somebody who can learn on their own and likes to learn and likes to absorb new information, the challenge you'll have is getting in the door the first time. Once you do that and you're successful, you won't have a problem usually going up the ladder from there, because people will judge you based on your results, not based on your schooling. Therefore, the question of is a college degree kedai or not really depends on what you plan to do with it. And obviously, we're talking about, especially in the firm world today, it's possible to get a college degree without ever stepping into a college. The only time I was ever in Tel Aviv University was when I spoke there. I could say the same example for many other places that I don't know if they would have taken me as a student, but once they accepted me as an expert, it was no big deal to get in there.
So what about like just regular goyish companies? They ask, oh, they want a BA in this or this and that. Is the experience more choshev than the degree if you have the experience, or not? Or and there's still the goyish.
Sometimes you get a question from somebody like a graphic designer, and they'll say, I can't get my first client. How do I do this? And the answer is not to go to people and say, I have no clients. The answer is to either work for free. Okay, fine, but I don't like that answer, so I'm going to give you a better answer. To go and make an entire portfolio of work for Coca-Cola, as an example. Pick a famous company, IKEA, Coca-Cola, Kedem, whatever the company might be. Pick a company that people have heard of, the people that you're dealing with have heard of, and make a bunch of ads for that company. And then when you go and you present to the company, you say, this is the ads, Walmart never hired me, or Coca-Cola never hired me, but if they would, this is the kind of ads I would create for them. Why is that a good thing to do? Because first of all, they can see you're talented, they can see you know how to create ads, and you have good copy, and you have creative ideas, and you're actually talented at polishing those ideas, not showing things that look off or misspelled, which is a conversation for itself. But the other gain is that the person sees the Coca-Cola logo on the advertisement. Now, even though you clearly told them Coca-Cola did not hire you, it still gives you that respect, because psychologically it's basking in reflected glory, which means that they see you as having an affiliation with Coca-Cola, even though you're telling them clearly you're not. There's a certain element of having a famous brand on that ad that you don't get when you do work for Moshe's hardware store.
Yeah, got it. So let's jump into the next question. You're on.
So I wanted to know, I have a service-based business. I do space planning and renovation consultant. So how do I raise my pricing? Meaning I feel like I'm definitely undercharging, and I have a client base that keeps coming back. So that's number one. How do I raise my pricing on my existing clients, and how do I raise my pricing in general and figure out a structure that I can, that's sustainable. And even just figuring out how to structure a service-based business, whether it's by the hour or by the job.
Okay, great question. I think a lot of people have similar questions. I'm going to come at it from a couple of angles. Just a second. Okay, first I want to say a story, and it's not a story I've shared often, but it's a story that when I started out was very helpful to me, and has since been helpful, Baruch Hashem, for many, many people over the years that I've told the story to privately. Before I say the story, though, I am aware that whenever I say this type of advice, people come and say it's against halacha, or it's not fair. So with that caveat, ask your local Orthodox rabbi if it's allowed in your industry based on who you are, what you do. But a lot of the reasons people underprice has to do with the fact that they don't realize that the competition is charging more. So we all know that because of first COVID, now I'm sure in China, now I'm sure the war in Ukraine, so at the end of the day, our expenses go up. Your gas bill went up, your food bill went up, your Amazon Prime membership bill went up. Why shouldn't you go up as well? And what I mean to say by that is people feel like, how can I go up? I remember, you go into your average pizza store and it says, we are sorry, due to the rise in price of cheese, our slice will now be, instead of $1.75, will now be $2 a slice. Interestingly, you never ever see a sign that says, since cheese prices have come down by 10 cents, we will now be lowering the price of a slice of pizza by 10 cents. Not only that, when the price of cheese rises to them by 17 cents a slice, they raise the price by 25, not by 17. Part one. Part two is people are scared to go up in price, and then when they do, they're scared to go up in price too much. And by the way, if I forget to say the story by the time I'm done with this Megillah, remind me. It's a story about a cigar. So first you don't go up, and then you don't go up enough because you're scared to go up. So first of all, when you go up, you have to go up visadaf sezan. When you go up, you have to raise prices significantly. If you want to grandfather old clients in, that's fine. If you could, if you can't, you can grandfather them until a certain date. When I go up in prices for consulting, I essentially say, I warn in advance, I'm going to go up in price. And if people want to get the old price, then they're entitled to buy now and use the hours later, that's fine. But essentially, you warn them in advance, you tell them what you're going to do, and then you do it. Now, it's also valuable when you can to try to detach the dollars for hours, which goes back to some of the previous questions I got as well, which is when you're selling an hour of your time for a certain price, okay, what is the price per hour? How does that compare to the competition? What are you offering? What is the competition offering? Is it worth it? Isn't it worth it? The second I offer something more than that, the second I offer as an example, so you can buy a certain lecture that I've given on a certain topic, and then you'll be smarter about that topic because you've heard a couple of hours worth of information about that specific topic. And then if you come to me for a consultation, you'll end up getting more. I'm not doing this to plug myself. I'm doing this to explain something. And then what happens is when a client comes in such a situation, they're gaining much more value because they have a lot of knowledge, which means they're coming with better questions. In the olden days, a person went to a doctor or went to a lawyer, they didn't have any information. They went and they started from the ground up. What should I do? Now people can go online, they can research, and after they research and they have much better questions, then they can come to the lawyer. But by that same token, the lawyer can charge much more for that consultation because it's both sides gain from him charging more. You gain from the fact you have to spend less hours being charged, and they gain from the fact that they can charge more for those hours because of the information done in advance makes their service actually more valuable in the same way that a specialist can charge more than a general doctor. Now, goes the story about the cigar. So I know a guy, his name is Dan. He must be 80 by now, maybe older. I don't want to insult him. For all I know, he'll hear this recording. And when he was young, he went to work for a lawyer who wasn't just a lawyer, but who did big business deals and was a partner in the deal. Not just like a lawyer charged per hour. He charged grubba fees, fat fees. And this guy then noticed that every time he would sit with this lawyer and they were closing a big deal, he would go into his office, everyone would sit down in his office, he would take a cigar, a Cuban Havana cigar out of his humidor. He would, I hope I pronounced that right, by the way. He lit it, he took a few good puffs, and then he would say, okay, let's do this, let's do that, it's gonna cost $110,000, and this is how we'll do it. And then the deal closed, people signed on the dotted line, shook hands, drank l'chaim, and that was the end of that. After seeing this 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 times, Dan went into the lawyer and said, boss, I love working here. Please don't take this the wrong way. I don't want to be fired. I'm telling you this because I think it could be valuable to you. But I don't want to upset you. The boss says, okay, what is it? I won't fire you. Go ahead, speak your mind. He said, I realize people don't like the stench, the grach. People don't like the way your cigars smell. It's really offensive to people. Why don't you go and sign on the deal and drink the l'chaim and shake hands and then go and smoke your cigar? Why do you have to make everybody, nauseous from your cigar? People don't like the smell. So the lawyer took Dan, patted him on the shoulder and said, Dan, you don't understand. The reason I smoke the cigar is so that I can bite down on it, chomp down on it really hard, so that I don't giggle when I quote my price.
Good.
Everybody can raise their price.
Some
The
of
fact
that
that you've been undercharging for the last, I don't know how long, is only another reason to raise it. It's not a reason not to raise it.
Okay. Some of this, I want to clarify the question. How do you go about raising it? You just straight up front say, these are my new pricing and this is what it is? You say, or you give an excuse, or you just don't give an excuse? Do you have to say because the cheese went up?
Not an excuse. Not an excuse. It might be a reason, but it's certainly not an excuse.
So I'm saying, do you say these are our new rates because
Hold it. No, this is an important point. It's not an excuse, it's a reason. Meaning to say, when you started in this conversation, and you said, I want to apologize to everyone for doing it on Monday night instead of on Sunday night.
Right.
You didn't say apologize. You said, I'm sorry we're doing it on Monday night. I'm sorry means you did something wrong. An apology means you're letting people know that you feel bad, they were inconvenienced. Same thing true with it. Language is very important, and it makes a big difference in business and in life and in emails and all kinds of communication. Good communication is mamash zaya wichtig. You never want to say, you want to say the reason I am going up in price is because, and using the word reason will help people understand that there's actually a reason for it. And you should say the reason, of course. Again, there's something that's a little hard to do to just give everyone a wholesale example of how it works. If you want, we could pick a specific example, but again, I don't want everyone to think they should just follow that example because it's really hard. When the pizza store says we're going up in price, the slice to $2, people don't like it.
Pizza store is different.
But when it says the price of cheese went up by price of cheese went up, everyone understands it.
Well, let's say you're talking about haircuts, so you're talking about a service-based business. You can't say that the cheese went up. You can say the world expenses went up. How do you answer it on a service business?
Increased costs. The rent went up. It was increased cost. The rent went up.
I own the building.
Increased cost.
The person is doing a service where there's no rent. My wife does shaitos in the house. Does the system cost more?
Well, I would actually disagree with you on that. I mean, if you want to plug your wife's shaitel business, go ahead. Say the name and phone number.
Adina's Consulting.
Consulting for shaitel business. Okay. But businesses can raise their prices. If you have a reason, good. If you don't have a reason, then you can do without a reason. But if I can achieve tonight that all the people who listen now and are listening later, that's how inflation works. People raise their prices, and then people raise prices on them. We all understand that. I'm not saying if you raised your prices last week, raise it again just because I said so on this podcast. But I am saying that many of us are being underpaid and we're worth more. And yes, if you've been doing this for X number of years, you're actually worth more now than you were worth those years ago. And if you're not being paid more than you were paid then, Houston, we have a problem.
Got it. Okay, shkoyach. Let's jump to the next question. You're on.
Hi, Rabbi Ginzberg. Thank you for taking my question. This is more of a question of looking at things, outlook, and pessimistic versus optimistic. In financial matters, let's say someone wants to buy a house, or someone wants to go into or invest in a business, or someone wants to take a job, and there's obviously risks and dreams involved. So, if your dream is that if this business works, you can make a lot, but obviously there's a risk, and the worst that can happen is X, Y, and Z and bankruptcy and whatever. What is the proper attitude to go in? How do you balance something properly in both having your dream and your good feeling that things will work out, but also being aware and on the safe side? This is one of the hardest things in just life I have with a lot of things. I'm scared to be so optimistic because what if things go bad? So I have to prepare enough for the worst. So then I could start going for the being so optimistic. But otherwise, sometimes I just feel that this doesn't work. I never get one step up when I do that.
Okay, very good, very valuable question. So first of all, I think I should give a little hagdom over here. There's something called the risk-reward ratio. Risk-reward ratio means that the reason why when you buy a building in Manhattan, you get a cap rate, which means you're paying the amount of money you're going to be making every year on the amount the building costs you, is very, very low. Masha'in Kane, when you go to pick your bad neighborhood, somewhere in Philadelphia, some terrible neighborhood in Philadelphia, you'll be able to get a much higher rate, much higher cap rate, essentially a much higher interest rate on your investment. Everyone likes to look at how much they're going to make, and if the building makes 20% a year, not 5% a year, gunisht, it makes 25% a year, it's gewaldig. But really, what's happening is the Welt nicht meshega. The reason why they're paying so much more, why the building can throw off so much more money when it's in a bad neighborhood in Philadelphia, as opposed to when it's a building in Midtown Manhattan, is because the reward is greater in the bad neighborhood, but the risk is greater in the bad neighborhood. Higher crime, higher vacancies, higher deadbeats, people who don't pay the rent. That's just the way it is. Therefore, the risk-reward ratio will reflect the actual risk to the actual reward. Now, there's 4 types of decisions people have to make in life. Okay? It's now by me almost 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to get it wrong. I'll just write it down for a second. 1 second. Okay, so there's high risk, high reward, high risk, low reward, low risk, high reward, and low risk, low reward. Again, I wrote down a piece of paper just so I shouldn't confuse myself when I repeat it now. So if somebody comes to you and says, buy a lottery ticket, cost $1, you can make $106 million in the Mega Millions. Do you have to go and ask 16 of your friends, 14 of your neighbors, and 3 consultants if you should do that or not? The answer is no, because the risk is low. So klal number 1 is when the risk is low, people feel much better about taking that risk, because if it goes wrong, I lose $1. I mean, you don't actually lose $1 when you don't win the lottery. You lose the $1 as soon as you buy the lottery ticket. But fine, it's not a big risk. I don't need to take a major machshava in order to decide if, in fact, I want to buy a lottery ticket or not. Now, when something is low risk, low reward, you probably shouldn't do it. When something is low risk, high reward, you probably should do it. When something is high risk, low reward, Mr. Tzedrait, if you do it, doesn't make any sense. When something is high risk, high reward, that's where you really have to dig deep and ask, obviously be mispalo, and try to figure out if the high risk is worth the even higher reward. Again, as we just discussed, the risk-reward ratio. So some people are more optimistic, some are more pessimistic. Some people started optimistic and get pessimistic when things don't go the way they wanted. Some people started pessimistic and are pleasantly surprised when things work out better than they wanted. Just like I tell people when they do a business plan. Do you need a business plan or not? Good question. If the bank asks for it, you need it. Should you have it for yourself so you can more clearly identify where you want to go and how? Oftentimes, yes. But one thing you have to know, I can guarantee you, I'll bet you, I'm not a betting guy, but I'll bet you 200 shekel on it, that the business will not go the way the plan says. It might go better, it might go worse, but it's not going to go the way the plan says, because that's not the way things work. When people have a failure, And it's not really a failure. Oftentimes, it's a learning experience on the road to success. And I heard a recent quote from somebody that the average successful person feels like an absolute failure once a week. And there's a lot of emes to that, because a human being is a human being, and a human being has ups and downs, no matter what they're doing and where they are, whether in life or in business or whatever. They say someone who has no stress, that means his heartbeat is just a straight line, chas v'shulam, he's dead. Because stress means up, down, up, down, up, down. So don't get worried when it goes down, it goes up and down, up and down. So essentially, the shorter version of the answer to your question is that should you take risk? It depends what the risk is. Should you feel like everything's going to go magically well? No. If you think so, you will then feel bad when things don't go the way you wanted. But if you're ready for the challenges and you see them as challenges, you see them as yiridus l'tzerich aliyos, you see them as speed bumps in the road, or sometimes have you ever climbed Mount Everest? No. Is it possible to climb? Sure it is. How do you know that? Because people have done it. Is Mount Everest up in a straight line? No. You go up, then you have to climb down a little to go to a different place, to go further up, right? So there's ups and downs. If somebody gets depressed at where life takes them, part of it, I'm not judging, there's always extreme situations, but part of it is simply they didn't think about it or weren't realistic enough about what it's going to take for them to get there. When I started this thing about my company, for example, I thought it was easy as pie. It was going to be done in, most optimistic expectations. L'maaseh Baruch Hashem, things take time. A lot gets learned. A lot of value happens over that time. You end up with something better than you would have had originally. But ultimately, that's the way life is.
Good morning, Rabbi Ginzberg. Let's go. We have so many more live. You're on now. Hi.
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 Hi. Hi, Rabbi Ginzberg. I'm 32 years old, and I've been doing internships since I'm about 21, and they've only been internships. I want to be able to hold a job. I am disabled physically, and they consider me as a liability. So how can I go about pursuing what I really want to do and not being labeled as a liability?
Okay. I'll answer the question, which may only be a partial answer. I'm happy to try to fine tune it later. But the first part of the question, the first part of the answer, essentially, I think is the following. People do, and again, I'm going to more general answer because I want everyone who's listening to be able to benefit from the answer. People do all kinds of things because people tell them, if you do this, you'll eventually make money. For example, people say, well, if you speak for me, speak for my school, speak for free or speak for $100. And the reason you should do it is because people will see that you're giving a speech at my school, and then they're going to hire you and they'll pay you the big bucks. So essentially, people always get lulled into these like meshugana traps of doing things that don't make money because other people are telling them that if you do this, this won't make you money, but this will get you to the place where that will make you money. And that doesn't work. It works a little bit, it works in the beginning, but too many people, most of the people listening probably, who are not yet making money are stuck in this same, I forgot what it's called when water goes down a waterfall and a whirlpool, like they get stuck in they're sucked under, and they're stuck like in the under the floor, under the current. So first of all, I think it's very good that you're taking internships because it's much better to work when a person can afford it. It's much better to work for free than to work for low pay. If someone's going to go speak for a school and they're not going to get paid, don't take $100 and don't feel you're worth $100, anything like that. You speak for free, and this is something you're doing for volunteer work. You're doing it to build your resume. You're doing it for whatever whatever reasons you're doing it. But the goal is to go from there to highly paid. So that's just part one of the question. Now, as far as your question about disability, it's a little hard for me to answer that question because obviously there's a lot of personal circumstances involved in that question. But I would like to think that in today's day and age, I mean, just as an example, I happen to know an attorney who is a very disabled attorney who makes a fortune doing what he does. I mean, I haven't seen his bank account, but it seems to me he makes a fortune doing what he does because he's very good at what he does, and his disability doesn't affect his brain. It doesn't affect him to do the work. If he was obviously an attorney who had to go to court and argue cases, then his disability might make a jury, as unfair as this might sound, look at him. Or actually, it may actually be the opposite. They look at him favorably, but it may help. It all depends on how, that's all personal circumstance. But I would like to think that in this day and age, it should be possible to even have it's funny to say it this way, but to even be able to use the disability as a way of saying I can overcome challenges. I am better than the fully able-bodied person in that kind of disability, for example, because look how far look what I've done with with what I have, as opposed to what somebody else might do if they didn't have the restrictions that I do.
Sorry,
I'm going to say a story here.
Isn't it
I want to say a
today's?
story here.
Okay.
First thing we wanted to say, go ahead.
No, I'm saying, isn't it in today's generation, especially just after COVID, like there's more remote and more types of opportunities than back in the day?
Again, what difference is there between me and the person who just asked that question, meaning to say, I'm in Eretz Yisrael. If I'm doing work for you in America, do you really know if I have all 10 of my fingers or not? I mean, Baruch Hashem, I do. But if I didn't, would you know? So, of course, COVID has, every kind of technology, as an example, has a certain learning curve, has a certain adoption curve, which means at one point, everyone had a computer, a big bulky computer. Yeah, the screen was bigger than my camera would allow me to show. There wasn't a flat screen, and it was a big bulky thing, and it was a separate screen, and it was a separate computer piece. And then suddenly, one day they came out with laptops, and they weren't small, right? But by today, a laptop and then a tablet, and then people who are both older people are starting to use technology they didn't use previously, and since people are getting older as time passes, more and more seniors, for example, are using technology today than we're using technology 20 years ago. Again, 2 points in that. One is because people who are seniors today who weren't seniors 20 years ago, and the other is because people, even if they're older, adopt technology as they get older. My great-grandmother, when she was born in 1901, had no technology. She had a cow. She told me today, Rebbetzin has a cow. It'd be like that most ridiculous thing, but she had a cow because otherwise you didn't have milk. And when I was explaining to her how email works, it's a very far jump from having a cow in your backyard or in your barn, I guess, to having email. So essentially, there's that curve. But what COVID did is COVID really sped up that curve, because many people who would only talk to me in person, even though I was doing sessions on Skype before that, suddenly it wasn't even a b'diavad, it was a lekatchila. So what does it matter where in the world I'm located, where they're located, what time it is for me? It doesn't matter as long as I'm working. For example, my calendar is an American schedule. Doesn't matter where I am in the world, as long as I'm doing the work at the time that's, and that's one of the things technology also helps with, obviously, with making sure time zones don't become a problem with booking the wrong time zone. But anyway, I wanted to say a story, which is negaya to the previous question. There was I once got in trouble for saying the story in a yeshiva, by the way, so apologies if anyone's too from to hear the story. You can pull out your earphones for the next 4 minutes or so. There was once a shegitz who wanted to learn judo. So he went to his daddy. He said, "Daddy, I want to go to school. I want to learn how to fight judo." So daddy said, "Shegitzel, entire kind." Okay, no problem. And they called up the school, looked in the yellow pages, found the school, spoke to the Rosh Yeshiva, the sensei, Lahavdil, as he's called. And okay, he says, next Tuesday, come for your first lesson. So comes the next week, Tuesday, and the father is taking Kleine Shegitzel to the lesson in judo. And on the way, Nishmei Nishveinige Rachmuna Litzlan, they have a terrible, terrible car accident. Baruch Hashem, they both survive. But Nebuch, Kleine Shegitzel's hand gets crushed. And they go into the ambulance, they go to the hospital. They tell the father and they tell the kid, listen, we're really sorry for this. We have to amputate the hand, Rachmuna Litzlan. You're healthy, you're fine. In other ways, other than the fact that you're about, that the hand no longer is a hand. They bandage him up, they send him home. They said, we have nothing to do for you in the hospital. I mean, you don't need a heart machine, you don't need anything. You just, Nebuch, Rachmana litzlan, he's missing his hand. Kid goes home, he sits home a couple of days and he mopes. A week later, he's feeling good enough to go back to school. A week later, he says, Dad, yes, Shai Gitzel, I want to go learn judo. The father says, my dear Shai Gitzel, I would be happy to take you for judo, but you only have one hand, Rachman Litzlan. How can I take you for judo? Dad, you said you were going to take me to judo. We were on the way to judo, and we had this accident. I'm not taking no for an answer. So the father says, okay, you know what? I'll call the school. I'll ask him if he could take a kid with one hand. So they call the sensei, and the sensei says, yeah, bring him in. So he goes and he brings in the kid, and the kid comes to the sensei, and the sensei says, listen, the first fighting move of judo I want you to learn is that I want you to learn a certain move, and he shows him. When that guy goes, ha, you go who? Shon. Practice. And Shai Gitzel spends the entire hour of his session practicing. And then the hour's up, and he goes home, and he's very excited about finally learning judo. A week later, he comes back, and the sensei says, I want you to practice the same move that you did last week. So he listens and he practices, and he's practicing the move a second week, and then a third week, and then a fourth week. At the end of 5 weeks, he wants to move on. He wants to practice another move. He's waiting for the sensei to give him the second thing to practice, and the sensei says, practice the same move. Okay? Sensei sagt, man fragt nicht, beginnen lahavd leilaf auf Abdullas. Sensei medaberes metoch groina. He doesn't want to argue with the sensei. He goes and he practices the move another week. After 10 weeks, he says, he decides he's going to gather up his courage. He's going to ask the sensei to teach him something else. Comes week number 11, and he comes into the sensei and he says, Sensei, I've been practicing the move for 10 weeks. The sensei says, practice it more. Shine. He was already over on the avera of approaching the sensei. Sensei to practice more. He's going to practice more. Week 11, week 12, week 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. At the end of 17 weeks, the guy knows another like 10 weeks is going to be the championship. He only knows this one very simple move. He's feeling very frustrated. He decides he's going to have to break again and violate the Japanese code, and he's going to have to tell the sensei that he has to know something else. He can't just survive with this one move. So he goes into the sensei and he says, Sensei, the championship is in 10 weeks. And the sensei says, practice the move I taught you. Shine. He has obviously, I'm a Vayira. He goes and he practices the move even further. So, it comes the championship. And comes to the championship, and he knows he's very tzabrochen inside because he knows he's going to lose because he only knows one move. And he gets on the mat, and the buzzer goes off, and he's fighting the guy across him, and the guy goes, who? And he goes, ha! The guy flips on the floor, stunned. They count to 10. I'm not so familiar with the rules of judo exactly. They count to 10, and the guy's on the floor, and they pronounce him, he's the winner of the championship, and they give him a nice-looking judo medal made in China, probably, and he's the champion, and everyone's cheering and clapping. He has tears in his eyes. His father has tears in his eyes. The sensei has tears in his eyes. Everyone's mentioned he won the championship. The father goes over to the sensei and says, Sensei Leben, how did you know my son would win the championship with that move? Are you like, like, how could that be? The sensei tells him, the way to block that move is to grab your opponent's left hand. And your son doesn't have one. Now, had the guy when he got in, and by the way, whoever was the previous question, I don't know if you're still, if they're still in the queue or they're.
Oh, they're here.
Okay. If not, I was just told them to email me afterward if the story was
I'm
helpful.
still here. I'm here.
Okay, good. But essentially.
One second, somebody, I muted you. I'm mute. I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry.
I will just ask you, if you don't mind, to keep every time people join in the middle of the thing, please keep hitting admit, because otherwise my screen gets blacked and I can't see anything besides
Sorry.
the
Try
person
remember.
asking the people, not the person. The many people asking to be admitted. Okay. So first of all, that story is a very good story for many reasons, and I find it very helpful people to understand what a disability is and isn't, and how sometimes something that seems like a disability could be not a disability, even if it is a disability technically. But more than that, the person who was fighting them in the ring, the other guy, knew the rules. He knew that guy goes, you go, ooh. But he didn't bother thinking before this particular and every particular fight, every particular competition, if they have to change the rules they knew because the facts on the ground are different than they were. The guy didn't think, well, this guy has one hand, so therefore should it affect the way I fight with him? They just went with the old rules they had in their head, like the old price they had that they forgot to raise.
Okay. Are we still ready for the next one?
Keep going.
Keep going. Okay, you're on. Hi.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, hi. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rabbi Ginzberg, for taking the time to answer all our questions.
My pleasure.
I have a question. I was wondering if maybe you have an Eitzah for me. I am a divorced lady. I am a social worker by profession. I have a degree in social work. Most of my experience is in the field of gerontology. I was working in a hospital in geriatric psych unit. I recently lost my job, and due to the pandemic, I really would like to find something to do from home now. And something that hopefully, if I can find something like that, and if it's matzliach, I think it would also be wonderful, so that Eretz Hashem, eventually, if I'm able to eventually move to Eretz Yisrael, that would also be a great way to be able to do it. So I'm wondering if you have any eitzes as to how I can go about finding something, not counseling, because that's not really what I was doing, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, specific to my field. But I'm just wondering if you have any eitzes for me as to something in that realm, or some way that I could find something in that realm, please. Thank you so much.
Okay, great question. First of all, I think it's important to discuss on a general level that there's a quote that I really like that I find helpful, which is that the opportunity of a lifetime comes at you once a week. I'm not sure who it's from. I'm not taking credit for it, but it's a very powerful idea to bear in mind every time something comes your way. Now, you have a tremendous amount of experience in whatever you've done till now. And as I told a previous question, as I answered to a previous question, there are many ways in which you can provide benefit to the people, or as the example that you gave, I won't try to pronounce gerontology because I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but sometimes the person you're helping is not actually the person I'll be referring to. It might be their child. It might be, again, just as an example, the person who you're marketing to when you're selling a pacifier is not the pacifier user, dummy for those people in England. It's not the pacifier user you're marketing to, hopefully, it's their parents. So it's just important to bear in mind, just like a radio station, the customer of the radio station is not the listener is the product, and the customer is the advertiser. So this can be different, especially in a field like yours, but you certainly have a tremendous amount of value and experience to offer to the, let's call it the financial buyer of the people that you are helping, whether it's them or somebody around them. How to actually monetize that would depend, and depend on each circumstance. But I'm willing to go out and say that I guarantee that there is a way to do it. Meaning to say, it's hard to say in each case exactly what I would do. If I would speak to you, if I'd speak to you for an hour, I probably could come up with some ideas, and then you might end up doing some of those ideas, or those ideas might lead to brainstorming, and you coming up, eureka moment 2 weeks later with your own idea, and things have to be tested and tried and tweaked. But there is opportunity based on your background and what you've done, in order to do something else whether or not it's in that field or not, something that links what you've done to something you could do and which immediately brands you as an expert in that thing that you're doing. I should mention here that there's a famous book, which I highly recommend. I'm not giving a hechsher on it. I'm just saying that if people are reading Goyish books, it's certainly not more treif than a different Goyish book. It's called Influence. And the author of the book is a man by the name of Dr. Robert Cialdini, Cialdini. Now I know Reb Coach Menachem and Reb Usha that you're always looking for sponsors for this particular show. So as a good idea, you could do a different show, would be that when a guest mentions something like I just did, you immediately send out a link to the people listening live and an email to the people who are listening. And that email would have a link to the Amazon page for that book, which would have an affiliate link, which would cost the customer nothing more, but would give you a commission on each book sold. And that would be another nice way to get another way of getting money to keep going with this Avodas HaKodesh. Back to the question, just as an example, if you have value to offer, even if you would start, for argument's sake, blogging or writing articles or using a website like Harrow, Help a Reporter, to be mentioned in articles, which is a discussion all of its own. I just wanted to mention it here in case somebody wants to take the time to look at that and see how it could be helpful to them. The bottom line is that you can do things like I just said with Amazon, with affiliate marketing, and you can discuss which books or which products are helpful to people in that particular category. And as you build traction, you would start making money from affiliate commissions in addition to any other ways which might lead to consulting for you or other things or a new job. And if you got a new job, it might help you get the job and it might help you make additional income besides the job, which you wouldn't have before.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering, do you know of anything in particular that comes to mind that I could do either online or on the phone or something people-oriented or anything?
I'll ask you a pretty random question, but if it doesn't help you, it might help somebody else listening.
Okay.
Did you have to write a thesis or anything like that in order to get the degree you have?
Yes, but I got my degree many years ago.
It doesn't matter. Take that and use it as a skeleton or whatever you want to call it, as a basis for a book or a product.
Mm-hmm. I'd have to dig it out. I don't even know if I even remember it or still have it. I'm older than I sound.
Okay, so then another thing I sometimes advise people to do is to sit down with somebody who's curious about your field. Let's say a college student who's going for the degree that you have from years ago. Sitting with them with a tape recorder running, telling them everything you know, your whole bag of tricks over an hour or two, and then using that tape, send that MP3 for transcription, and then you'll have a basis for a product right there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could take this webinar separately from whatever Coach Menachem doesn't publish in the book and make a product around it that I could sell for a few $100s. And it would be, the value is there, meaning it wouldn't be overpriced. Because if a person would take something out of it that would almost instantly make them much more than they paid for it, they would feel they got tremendous value. And that leads to an interesting point, which I think is kedai to discuss. The hardest thing to get someone to do is to open their wallet. If somebody opens their wallet to give you anything, 99 cents, $10, a penny, once they actually open their wallet to take out that credit card, it's very easy to get much more money from them as long as the value that they're getting is equal to or even better, more than what they're paying. So if somebody gives me, for argument's sake, to buy this recording, which the people listening should know that just because you listen for free, don't value it at that price point, because you're doing yourself a big disservice and you won't actually follow the advice or do anything with it if you look at it that way. Excuse me. It's even important for people when they are not comfortable charging for something, to say, I'm going to be charging $100 for this course and the money will go to Hatzalah, as an example, is much better than charging $10 for the course. Because if people will pay $100, they'll feel good about paying it because they're going to a nonprofit and they feel it's a worthy nonprofit to give money to. But at the same time, they will value your value at what you gave them at a higher dollar amount, which makes it easier for you to get money from them for yourself going forward.
Well, what would you say a person that put in a lot of money into a business, thousands and thousands of dollars, and at the end, it didn't work out. They closed down. now feels like a loser. Now, anything that comes up, and it comes into his way that he should be doing, and he does have talent, and he does have what it needs to build, but he doesn't believe in himself anymore. He just feels like a lo yitzlach. So whatever comes up, he doesn't even take the opportunities. How could you help his mindset?
Okay, very good question. First of all, when somebody drives and Chas v'shalom has an accident, many people will come out of the accident and say, I'm never driving again, that's it. And they are told, right now, get into a car and drive around the block. Because if you don't drive now, if you don't drive tonight, you may never drive again. Because the fear and the paranoia and the worry and the, especially if somebody got seriously hurt, somebody else, and the guilt, then they need to do something now to remind themselves that they're normal and they're regular and that this is not the end of everything. Most successful people did not succeed on their first try or second try. I know of a gentleman who was a very, very, very wealthy man. I believe, if I remember correctly, it was his 19th business in which he was actually successful. One time before Edison didn't make his light bulb, he was still failing. I once saw a cartoon, which I haven't been able to find since. I actually went online and had an artist draw me the same cartoon, meaning looking very different, but the same idea, which had a guy with a sign, successes and failures. And then he took a piece of paper and covered it with failures with learning experiences. Because ultimately it's not a failure, it's a learning experience, it's a bump on the road on the way to success. Now, when you tell me a person put in so much money and didn't succeed, I hope you're saying that he put in a little money and he succeeded, and he put in more money and he succeeded, and he put in more money and he succeeded, and then the world around him changed and he wasn't ready to pivot, and the Redel hat sich gedreht, and he lost his money. Because if you're telling me a guy put in tons of money right away and didn't succeed, then I'm not trying to make the guy feel bad, but ultimately he did a shtickle avla by putting in so much money up front that he couldn't afford to lose. Now, there's something called MVP, minimum viable product, is when someone's testing something, you can test it without spending a fortune today's day and age, and then if it works, you build upon that more and more. Amazon didn't start selling everything, they started selling books. Not only did they start selling books, but they didn't actually have the books that they were selling, they took them from third parties. And I once heard an interview from Jeff Bezos where he said that he figured out certain books that were out of stock by the publisher, by the seller that he was buying from, and he would make sure to order those books, because since they had a minimum order of 3 books or a minimum order of $50, he would make sure to order the book that was ordered by somebody on Amazon, plus 2 additional books that he knew were out of stock from his research, so that he was able to buy only 1 book, which the company wouldn't sell him only 3 books. So he essentially figured out a way to spend as little as possible to get his business going, because he didn't have the money, just like he didn't have money for packing tables and was on the floor knee pads. I don't know how many people listening to the story, but if you sell on Amazon, you probably know about that type of mindset when he started in a garage with a table that said spray paint the word Amazon around, behind his on the wall. Now, obviously things change. There was once upon a time a guy, some people listening might even remember this, maybe the previous caller said that they're older than they sound remembers. I don't think so, but maybe. There used to be ice boxes. There used to be people who came around Borough Park and they brought you ice, because you didn't have a freezer. The commercial freezers for factories, but in people's homes, they had ice boxes, and that's how you got your ice. And then one day somebody invented the home refrigerator, and the price came down enough that people started buying refrigerators and freezers. And once people had freezers at home, no fault of the icebox man, he had his trucks, he had his machine that made ice, he had his route, he had his customers, and everything fell apart. Should he have gone into the freezer business? Maybe. Maybe he should have realized when it came out that people are gonna buy it, and he should start selling it to his customers. At least he'll get some money out of his current customers because he has a relationship with them. But he didn't, and he lost money, and that happens over many times. And many people, every successful person will tell you about things that they didn't work out, or projects they had that fell. I had an uncle, the Kalev Rebbe, he was nifter about 2 years ago. And he was, he went through the Holocaust, and he didn't have children. He went through a very, very, very hard life. But he was constantly trying new things. Many of them failed. Some of them are world famous and succeeded.
I know we're almost finished. Just Could we speak for a minute, just switch to self-development? Talk about even Ruchni is the goals, davening, learning, why we need them, how we can implement, how to break them down, what are we looking for, just for a few minutes before we finish.
Okay. Again, as I said in the beginning, the story I said about Rabbi Friend in one of his tapes, he's not a paragon of perfect parenting. Nobody should take this to mean, or the bookshelf behind me, which looks very nice as a background, to mean that I actually finished Halavai. But
So it was a virtual background.
No, it's not. It's real. It's actually it's real. Okay. It looks a lot of Ben Ish Chai's Hurim. Oh, anyway. But I once heard a word from somebody that he doesn't have a library, he has an unlibrary. Because simply looking at all the books he has reminds him of how little he knows and how much more he has to go. And that person told me, who said that was a goy. So Alachas Kama V'Kama, in Yiddishkeit, it goes much deeper than that. Let's pick Daf Yomi as an example. If I use Rabbi Friend again, he said, if I misquote him, forgive me, great is the enemy of the good, which means if a person doesn't do one day, then they lose cheshik and they don't do it. But knowing, for argument's sake, if a person wants to do Daf Yomi but knows they can't do it on weekends, that's Friday, Shabbos, Sunday, whatever, they can't do it. Is it better to go one blot a day every day and then the next week continue and be off from the schedule of the rest of the Agidist world doing Daf Yomi? Or is it better to skip blots and go through the whole Shas missing blot? Well, I don't know if the answer is for everybody, but for most people, I would guess it's better to do the blot that the world is doing, because that way you have you don't have to be self-driven. You have a shir you go to Monday through Thursday that does a blot, and the fact you don't do it on weekends, fine. But you'll get the blot that you get. You may ultimately decide at some point that you do want to start doing Fridays or Sundays or Friday, Shabbos, and Sundays. But the fact that you have the world around you motivating you is much better than trying to do just a blot a day and doing it by yourself with no one, to keep you accountable. At the same time, there's something I think is very important to say, which has been proven, and it's counterintuitive, which is why it's so important to say. Many people will come up in the Goyish Welt, especially, December time, they'll come up with their New Year's resolutions. And New Year's resolutions, you didn't have them also. I once had a client call me up in Matzim Kippur, Matzah Rishuni. He must talk to me immediately. I'm like, what's the matter? He's like, listen, my Kabbalah on the Yontif, what it was Rishonim Kippur, my Kabbalah was that I'm going to spend more time learning, and therefore I need to give you more work. I need you to do more work for my company. You're doing till now, because till now I was doing it myself, now I'm giving it to you. So look at that. Yenam's Ruchni is Aman Gashmi is amazing. But anyway, people are busy with their goals for New Year's resolution. What happens? What happens is they tell their friends and neighbors, my New Year's resolution is I'm going to lose 25 pounds. The problem is when you share it with people, you're actually less likely to actually accomplish it than when you don't share it with people. If you wait till people start complimenting you that you look better, etc., then you have a certain people keeping you going and pushing you because you're getting compliments. But actually sharing it before you start hurts your goal. It doesn't help it. I found many times when people buy products, even my products, and then they don't actually ever listen to them. Because the guy had a need. He had a problem in his business, for example, and he wanted to fill that need. When he bought that product, mentally he clicked the checklist. When he clicked that checklist, he clicked that, that check mark. Okay, I accomplished that, even though he didn't listen yet. And often what happens is he never ends up listening. Story relevant to that is there was once a mattress store that sold lots of mattresses. And they had a neighbor who was a chiropractor. And the chiropractor figured out, if I'm looking for people who have back trouble, let me go to my chaver, the mattress store, and let me get him to give me his people who put mattresses, and maybe they want to come to a chiropractor. Taka, great idea. It worked beautifully. He was able to convert 25% of all the people he got on this list to become his clients. That's an amazing conversion rate. If one of your neighbors gives you a list of 100 people, you get 25 of them to buy from you. That's a pretty good rate. I hope your yawning does not imply
No,
I'm being
no,
boring.
chas v'shalom, no, chas- I just came back from Europe.
Because if your yawning implies that it's late at night, I'll remind you it's 6:27 in the morning for me. Okay. I hope you forgive the, yeah, okay, just keep it entertaining. You did say I was entertaining, so I have to at least a little bit.
Abyssal.
And hello, Avi Chap. Hello, Avi Chap. Okay, he asked for a shout out, so we'll do that for him. Okay. So now, 1 week, the chiropractor gets his list of patients, meaning to say that the chiropractor gets his list of mattress buyers who are looking to buy mattresses, and he converts 75% of it. Not 25, not 30, not 35, not 40, not 50. 75% of the list. And he's like, something's wrong. This is not possible. This is like a mathematical impossibility. How can that possibly be? So they start digging. How could it be? What's different about the list this week? After a lot of digging, they figured out that this week they had given him the list of people who had come into the mattress store, but for one reason or another left without buying a mattress. They needed a different size, they needed a different thickness, a different, I don't know how mattresses work, but they needed something different, and ultimately they didn't buy a mattress. And they realized that when someone's back hurts and they buy a mattress, even if their back still hurts, they don't worry about it, because they know in a week or 2 or 3 it's going to stop hurting because they're having a mattress. Masha'inka, and the guy goes into the mattress store and walks out without a mattress, his back still hurts, and he didn't mentally tick that check back because he didn't solve the problem. And therefore, much more of them were able to convert. So it's important when a person is setting goals to themselves, be they Yiddishkeit or not Yiddishkeit. It's very important for a person to understand what they're trying to achieve, how they're trying to achieve it. And again, eat the elephant, the kosher elephant. After Mashiach comes, we'll have kosher everything. Which goes back to the original thing about we're looking for the goel tzedek as far as a goal, but trying to do it one bite at a time and not being discouraged, realizing that being discouraged or rather being disappointed is just part of the journey. When I was a kid, we used to have, before Game Boys and Game Gears and all that kind of stuff, and all the stuff they have today, Xbox, we had these little timeout games. Yeah, gedenkst? 2 buttons with a start and some button sound, I think sound on, off, and then a right and a left. And there were a few games. There was one of the games was a game where you had a racing car and there were 3 lanes and you had to go middle lane, left lane, you had to avoid the cars in the middle of the way. I'm not talking about the fancy games with the steering wheel you put in quarters when the camp went to Great Adventures or something. I'm talking about these little timeouts that everyone had in camp. But in any case, sometimes the road is empty and sometimes the road is full of cars as it gets harder and harder, and you have to maneuver between the cars to get to one thing to the other. What happens when you get to the end? When you get to the end of the game starts again, but it's harder. There's more difficulty, there's more potholes or whatever, more cars on the road. So therefore, when someone gets to the first level in round 2 of the game, they don't feel discouraged. Oh, I'm back at level 1. They realize, okay, Baruch Hashem, I achieved what I wanted to achieve originally with my having gotten to the end of the game. And the fact that the game is giving me more difficulty just means I'm acing the game. It's not the opposite.
Rabbi Issamar, we really want to end, but I just 2 things I really want to try to cover, if that's okay. Just another few minutes. Is that okay?
You can keep going for another hour and a half.
Another hour and a half.
Okay. Earlier than that, it's because you yawned.
Because I yawned. Okay, you want to keep me all night. So it's a very basic question. I got a few texts to this already tonight, but I think the people who can relate to this, I don't know if there's an answer. Basically, I have a job. I'm struggling to make it. There's no growth. I feel stuck. What's some first steps I could do while I'm in a job, paying my bills, to try to open up new doors of opportunity to make more money? What can a person do? And I'm sure I saw today, I got already like 5-10 of these in different versions. What can a person do when he has a job, he's working 9 to 5, he's putting all his kayaks there, and what can he do to try to open up new doors of parnasa, an opportunity for himself?
Okay, very, very, very good question. It goes a little bit back to what I said previously about the opportunity of a lifetime comes once a week. There is a tremendous amount of opportunity out there. A person just has to be on the lookout for it. Okay? Every person who's listening to this heard things today that everybody else heard also, and yet they could take a certain nakuda that the next guy's not going to take, and they can go and run with it. Every person that reads this week's Hamodia, same thing is true. Every person that comes across anything in their daily, so it's just a matter of taking that and saying, okay, how can I do with that? I wanted to tell you a quick story about a banana. So what should writers do when they get stuck? They have writer's block. The answer is they think of a banana. Why does the banana help? Because I'm in writing a story, and I'm writing, and the guy came, and he heard, and there was a fight between Russia and Ukraine, and he came and he went, and suddenly the door opened, and then he has writer's block. Oh, what do I do now? So the trick is a banana. What with a banana? He slipped on a banana, a man dressed as a banana, a man wearing clothing that was the color of a banana. Now, once I actually do that, I'm out of my rut, I'm out of my writer's block. Then I could get rid of the banana and change the guy from a guy slipping on a banana to a guy dressed like an apple, with a big bite taken out of the side. But the point is, you do something to get out of your rut. Now, I don't really care, even though this may not be so nice sounding, if the person asking the question does something which doesn't really make them money. But the point is, it takes them in the direction of something that'll make them money. Meaning to say, can I guarantee? Here's a random example. I don't play violin well. Don't ask me to play on the next time you have me on. But I can play a few songs on a violin. Minig to play on a violin. So instead of learning notes, you just try to learn the tunes that you got to play. Now, I bought violin strings from somebody on eBay once, or maybe on Amazon. Doesn't matter. eBay is probably easier for this example. Going back to the very first question I was asked. And I got the violin strings. I think with $10. I paid $10. I got the string Shulam Yisrael. About a month later, I get this huge catalog selling violins, violin cases, violin strings, violin books, violin magnets. I don't know what they had. A thick catalog full of everything violin related. There's actually a clock called the Kit Kat clock. I remember my next door neighbor had one growing up. How do I explain it? Maybe you'll remember this also. Some people who know what I'm talking about remember a clock in the shape of a cat. It had a black tail, and the eyes would go from side to side when the clock thing. Anyway, when I was growing up, that was like a zach. And turns out there's a whole club called the Kit Kat Clock Club. If you buy a Kit Kat clock, they offer you membership and actually a card to carry in your wallet or purse. For the Kit Kat Clock Club, sounds like a tongue twister, which ultimately they sell you everything because they know if you like that, you like other things cat related, and everything like that can be jump started into a much bigger business that people might think of when they see the business. Some guy selling clocks. There's a whole business behind it. But anyway, back to my violin story. So I see that, okay, they know I have a violin. How do they know? Because I bought strings. So even if they lose money on the strings, they break even on the strings. At the end of the day, they now have someone who might buy other things violin related. Very good potential prospect, because if you bought violin strings, chances are he doesn't play the saxophone. So now, what I was thinking at the time, I never ended up doing it, but I was thinking at the time, and just a good example to show people how this works, I was thinking, well, my first name is Issamar. So if I wanted, I could open a brand called Issamar backwards, Ramasi, Ramassi. And what does this brand sell? Violin strings. Now, I would actually buy the strings. I wouldn't, if I wanted to go to China and get a container of strings and pay $3 a string and then sell them for $3, nobody could be cheaper than me really without losing money. And the reason I'm doing it is not to make money. It's just to get the customers, and I'll make money on the other things they buy. But I wouldn't even go that far. I would simply buy string samples from Amazon, from China, let's say, or buy samples from some guy who's buying it from them, who's selling it locally, and pay $6 a piece and sell it for $3 a piece. Buy it, take it out, put it in my own envelope, sell it, and then when I sell 50 strings, 100 strings, 200 strings, then I know that there's a potential business here. And then I could start getting strings from China and waiting the time and paying the duties and doing all that. But I can actually start and see if something works, back to minimum viable product, without spending a lot of money. Anyone can start something today, gewaltig geschrieben, in the current environment, b'siyata d'shmaya, without spending a fortune to do so, which is one of the reasons one of the previous questions about a person who spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and now feeling a little discouraged. One of the big problems is he shouldn't have been doing that. And I once had a person who came to me for business advice, and they told me, yeah, I want business advice, whatever. I have a business that does this, that, and the other. And they described to me their business was a very unique business. I don't want to say what their business was, but let's just say, for argument's sake, let's pick an interesting thing. They make air conditioners. They sell air conditioners, unique air conditioners. So I'm asking questions, that and the other, and after like 20 minutes of this, I'm like not getting it. I said, how many customers do you have? So the client tells me, you're not going to believe me. And in my head, I was thinking the guy probably has 10 customers. I'm ready to be shocked that he has, like, okay, how many customers do you have? He says 0. So I'm like, 0 customers. So what do you mean? He says, well, I had to sign up in his business with certain suppliers, and they have minimum orders to buy from them. So I bought a ton of stuff. No, everyone who's listening and everyone who's watching should please ignore his yawn. And so what ended up happening was he had to buy equipment from a bunch of companies. They all had minimum order quantities. So he spent $200,000 in orders, and he spent lots of money having one of his graphic designer people he was introduced to putting full page ads in the Hamodia, Yated, Mishpacha, Ami, Moment, whatever the Liquid Shopper, Matzah, right? Whatever the particular, whoever the sponsors are of this place, shkoyach to them, okay? JCN, and
There was
what
somebody
ended up. So I told him
for me. You already got the speech.
Mrs. Kaufman. What else do I have to remember?
Coach Menachem, Clarity.
Clarity. The platform.
Please make out all the checks. Please make out all the checks. Chaim Avram Shia Hirsch.
And please sponsor the. And please click on the link for the 1,000 books or whatever that was put in the comments earlier. Okay. Anyway, so I told the gentleman. I said, listen here. I'm sorry to tell this to you, but you don't have a business. And Derech Agav, I'm not a big fan of people putting in full page ads everywhere just because their friends think, because they think if they don't, that means they're not successful. Just like the people with the fancy cars don't necessarily have money. The people with the old cars don't have money. If you want to see if a business is successful, look in last year's, go into your local doctor's office, pick up a mishpacha from 2 years ago, and see how many of those businesses with full page ads are no longer around. Then you get the hint about if those full page ads actually are right for your particular business. So I told the guy, I said, listen, you don't have a business. You have lots of money you spent. You don't actually have a business. He's like, what should I do now? I spent all my money, all my wedding money, all borrowed money. I have no money left. He says, even the money I just spent on your time, it's my last few dollars. So I said, first of all, obviously we both understand it's not my fault that you're coming to me now. I mean, it's not that I can always help everybody. I'm not trying to insinuate that, but 90% is a good feat you're coming to me now. So the only thing I could do for you is try to help you based on where you are now. I said, number two, here's what I want you to do. There's a local paper in Borough Park. I believe it's called, the paper that I told him at the time was called, there's the other paper, which I told him to do the other paper, Ruben's paper. I want to give him a shout out, but I have to remember the name of his paper. That's pretty terrible. Somebody who's messaging me on WhatsApp while I'm doing this podcast, will send me the name of that paper. Anyway, so I told him, I want you to put in an ad there. Okay, what should the ad say? The ad should say, air conditioners installed $99. He's like, yeah, but I don't sell those cheap junk air conditioners for $99. I sell the high-end air conditioners that cost $10,000. And those air conditioners have a lot of mileage that a little one doesn't. But you know, the air conditioner for $99 is not part of my category. I can't expand. Once the guy puts that in, it's like a little window unit. Thank you for helping me come up with the name. Koil Berumu. Okay. In Lakewood it'd be Vivasser. Okay, let's not get in. And where do I have a column every week? You can tell I'm really tired. In a bunch in Yazoiri. Okay. So anyway, I told the gentleman, I said, listen here. Why do I want you to put in this ad? As I explained earlier, once you get $1 from someone, it's easier to get much more. You put in an ad that says you come install an air conditioner for $99. You don't sell them. Too bad. Buy them retail for $100 and put them in for $99. Lose money by going down there. But what do I want to gain from this? I want you to go to people's houses and I want you to go to people's houses and I want you to install air conditioners for them. Some people will take the $99 one. And some people, when you're in their house, you say, listen, I'll give you for $99 a window unit. Or if you want, I can give you for $5,000 another unit, which is also basically just a window unit. But if you choose to expand it in the future, you can expand it into a huge system which has all kind of gadgets and contraptions and smart applications and whatever.
Upselling.
Right. But you need to first get hold of the guy by the gargle because he's going to come for a $99 thing from an ad. He's not going to come for a $5,000 thing. And the person did it. And Baruch Hashem, I was able to be able to help them get out of a pickle and turn that into something. I can give you more stories. I don't know if you want to hear them or not. I'll give you one of them though. Just not even the whole story, just a part of it. I once had a client, a couple. They didn't call me. I knew that they had trouble in their business. They didn't call me, so I didn't. I have enough places to put my nose where people ask for it. I don't have to stick my nose where people don't ask for it. One day I get a phone call, emergency, if I could please meet them tonight. I go meet them. Okay, what's the thing? Our accountant told us we have to close. We've been in business for 3 years. We're not making any money. We must close down. I'm like, okay. So we called you because we figured before we close, we'll call you. I said, okay, but you know and I know that I know your business exists because of a certain, like you say, we're mishpocha, same kind of mishpocha, like, yenek welt mishpocha. Friends, you pick your friends, not your relatives. So be happy with friends. You don't have to get the mishpocha. But anyway, so I said, why didn't you call me till now? Let me hear the thing. Oh, because we don't like the way your ads look. We need ads that are much classier than the kind of ads you like. And then we didn't call you. But now that our accountant says we have to close, we're willing to try, give it a shot, your ads, before we close. So I'm like, great. If this works, mazel tov. If it doesn't work, you'll blame me that I wasn't able to, you come to me like, Mama, after the accountant says close. I took a pen and paper. It was a couple, Chassidish couple. And I feel funny saying the story here in a video recording, but I'll say it anyway because it's going to be helpful to people. I said there was pen and paper on the table. I took the pen and paper, a pad of paper and a pen. I pushed it across the table towards the Yidina sitting opposite. And I said, please do me a favor. Please write down the names of your 10 best friends. She looks at her husband. Her husband looks at her like this guy fell off the wall. He's coming to give business advice, asking for the names of my best friends. I said, I'm not even going to read it. Just write down the names of your 10 best friends. She wrote down, I don't know, Ruchi, Rosie, Rivki, Ratzi, whatever the 10 random best friends were. Okay, thank you. I said, now turned over the pad of paper. I took the pad of paper, I pulled it to the middle of the table. I said, okay, now I'm going to help you with your business. If you don't like something I do, I'll do something different. It's not a problem. But there's one condition attached. I'll only help you on condition that what these 10 people say doesn't matter. And everyone could draw one if not multiple nimshulim from that story. Those people are not your potential clients. And if they're going to buy from you, they're going to buy from you anyway. And what's really happening is they're living vicariously through you. If I would have a shoe store, I would do this or that. That's not how it works. Let the guy run his business. Let him talk to professionals. What's this business that you take the achrayas? I mean, it's always an achrayas, but at least if you do it for a living, or you do it for many years, or you have the business for many years, you can give someone else advice. But just because you happen to be someone's friend, how does that qualify you to give advice on what they're doing for a living?
So, okay, let's go to closing. When we go to closing, when Menachem is going to wrap up, then you're going to go. Let's really leave the oil with a chizik, with where to go from there, some real takeaway material. So I'm just going to go through this closing over here again. Shkoyach, Rabbi Issamar Ginzberg coming, waking up. He was actually on early tonight with me. So he woke up I don't know if he went to sleep yet, but he was up.
I didn't wake up. I davened Shachas B'Shem yesterday at a decent hour, and I'm still up since then.
So you're gonna very good. So you're up for about 48 hours. Not bad. Maybe you can be up for one more day. It'll be even better.
It's not 48, but whatever. Yeah,
Shkoyach for coming on and being mechazik. All the people that were here tonight, the 1,000 people that were
just for the record, you're closing it, not me. I didn't send you a message on the side saying please wrap up. I'm happy to take another 100 questions. You are closing the session. No problem. Okay.
Great. It's me closing the session. All the yawning is catching up.
You were in Europe, so you're a day late and you're closing the session. Go ahead.
I'm closing Tuesday session. Again, I think
Tuesday, by the way, is Yom Shenich L'Vay, which is Tuesday every week. Tuesday, I give a Yiddish language shir. If anybody wants to get it, send me an email.
Okay. Oh, I want to get to that in a second. 1 second. Okay.
Or we could do a part 2 next week. Next week, you take it already. We could do every Monday. You have every Sunday somebody. We could do every Monday.
All right. So Sunday night, Coach Menachem and friends. Monday night, Rabbi Issamar Ginzberg and Usha Barnes. Just a hack and cup.
Sponsored by Coach Menachem because we have.
Sponsored by Coach Menachem, right? We have it's and we could feed off each other and market for each other.
100%.
Okay. Again, I feel like we have a lot more to talk about. I mean,
what? I'm sorry. What's your wife's shtetl business called again?
It's called Adina's Consulting Services.
There you go.
Somebody wrote how should she raise the price the same because she has a very expensive coach and that's why she needs to cover the cost of the shtetl.
Very good.
Okay, again tonight shir Tzadik Gimel, right? 93 Tzadik Gadol Hayasham. Again, if anyone
we discussed it's Gimel Tzadikim. Don't forget.
If anybody wants to join the WhatsApp chat, just WhatsApp me at 848-525-0066. And every Sunday I'll send you the flyers that are coming out that night. And you post it, let people know about it. If you want to get it via email, go to menachembernfeld.com, sign up to his weekly emails. Again, if anybody here the first time, it's every Sunday night. I know that it doesn't add up, but just tonight, but it's every Sunday night at 9:30 Eastern time. We have tremendous shir. Next week, Menachem, we're going to have March 6th, the amazing shir of Shalom Usher Tauber. He's Rabbi Zeriel Tauber's son, And his sister is my wife just listened to share. What's her name? Rebbe Newstead, I think, is his sister. And they're tremendous in chinuch. And he has a whole thing on setting boundaries for younger children, a guide to raising a healthy family. It's a very unique topic. We've done obviously a lot about families and children and struggling children, but he's really going after the young children, just the foundations of how to set up a healthy home. It should be a tremendous program. It should be a tremendous chizuk. So please join, tell people to come. It'll be a tremendous thing. Again, Menachem texted it out. We're trying to write the book. Please join and help us raise the money together to put together the first two books. Rabbi Issamar, you're share 93, so you're going to be in book 3. So hopefully by 2023 it should come out, like another year or two.
I got a few problems with what you just said. Number one, you should be asking me to write Hagdama to the first book, so that I don't have to wait till book number 3.
Oh.
Number
good.
2, you should be asking the Chushev Tzibur to donate to the book fund. Sachakel 1% of what they feel this share tonight was worth.
They should donate to the book fund 1% of what the share is worth. Wow. Okay, it's good. I don't like to push. I'm not here. We're really not here to market. We're really here.
How much do you charge? 2 hours.
It's not about 2 hours, because I charge more for a lecture than I would charge for personal consulting. It's much harder.
So tell the Olam.
Okay, so again,
you gotta answer questions about free cash flow. What are you talking about?
Everything is recorded. I'll be on menachembernfeld.com. If you have any questions, please email coachmenachem@gmail.com. Again, tonight's share is 93. If anybody wants to listen on the phone, it'll be uploaded tomorrow. Our phone number is 848-777-GROW to listen to the shiurim. Again, it goes to all our advertising sponsors, the Lakewood Scoop, Rabbi Yanif from Chazak, and Chayil Kaufman, Shul Summer from JCN Jewish Content Network, for always promoting us on all the Jewish platforms. And let's just go to the closing. Coach Menachem, you want to wrap up tonight what we spoke about? And one second before that, sorry, Rabbi Issamar, people want to know how they can get in touch with you, contact information, website, your address, your phone number, social security number, whatever you want to give out. People are asking how to get in touch with you.
Okay, so first of all, you should know that social security numbers work by which state you were born in. Since I was born in New York State, I have a low social security number. It actually starts with 117. If your number starts with a 0 or a 1, you're probably born in New York State. Unless you work for the railroad, then your number would start with a 9 or something, but let's not go there. In any case, my social security number is 11764. I won't give the last 4 numbers because some of my family members would have tinus on me why I did that, even though I'm not like really scared that someone's going to go. And in any case, so now what else did you ask me about? My phone number?
No, any contact information. Menachem's going to give a closing, then you'll give the final closing. People want to know if you have a website or something they want to get in touch with you or any mahalach. Well, should they just email Menachem?
I don't want to harass Menachem with all the thousands of emails he's going to be
Whatever
getting.
Whatever you want.
Your email address.
My email address is rabbiissamar@gmail.com. I'll spell it. RABBI. That's Rabbi. And then Issamar starts with an I also, so it sounds complicated. RABBIISSAMAR, because it's rabbiissamar@gmail.com. Someone's going to ask why I don't use my domain. I have a domain, rabbiissamar.com, which people can see as well. But why I use the Gmail address? Well, you have to ask me. You'll email me and ask me that question, and I'll tell you why. rabbiissamar@gmail.com. I actually have a phone number as well. I got a new one, so I got to tell it to you because it's, I don't know by heart. 718-550-6600, 718-550-6600. It's really mostly a Yiddish language hotline, but there is a place to leave me a message as well. As a general, and if you want to WhatsApp me, my tablet is plus. I mean, if you have to put an overseas number, at least here you have to put in a plus 972-52-956-9096. Again, I'll say that a little slower. By the way, the good instruction is tell people take a pen or write it down, because then people actually do it. Otherwise, they just hear it. Plus 972-52-956-9096.
Okay, Coach Menachem, closing. Wrap up what we heard tonight. Rabbi Issamar, leave the oilam with chizuk, with a story, encapsulate tonight in the closing. Rabbi Menachem.
It's a big challenge. I'm not sure I can do it, but we'll try.
I want to thank Rabbi Ginzberg for being with us tonight, a Tuesday morning, and there was a lot of information, and hopefully everyone can take it to where they need to. And I would say everybody should make a resolution, what they're going to do now, because from hearing all of these ideas to actually do it can be a bridge, like discussed, from the head to the heart. But perfectionism sometimes comes in the way. We've touched on it a little bit. The people they only do things when they know it's going to work out, and who knows if it's going to work out before you do it. And like we heard, it could take many times until it works out. So that's why many people don't do anything. But about prices, I would just want to leave with that, is it would be a good idea if you speak to somebody about it. There are many people who are absorbed and all they see is themselves and don't believe. All they have to do is talk to somebody, discuss it with somebody, pay them a session or two so you can hear it from somebody else. And that could help people raise their prices. And with that, I hope that everyone can find the right way that they can cover their bills and have some for savings. And in Mr. Shem, have a lot of siyata d'shmaya in all their goals that they choose.
Rabbi Menachem.
Amen.
Rabbi Issamar, I just want to let you know before you go to your closing, a lot of people text me tonight's show is unbelievable. And when you're coming back again, I got 3 or 4 texts already before.
I can't come back again if it's going to take 7 years for the book to come out, because it's going to be Shia number 436. So we'll have to talk about that.
Are we mishpacha or not? I can see if we can work it out.
Become mishpacha now, okay.
Listen. There's something in life, which they say it's called I forgot the name of it again. It is 7 o'clock at 6:53 in the morning. Essentially, it's the power of 5, which means you to anyone else in the world are connected through 5 people. Meaning there's only 4 people between you and Kim Jong-un. If that makes you feel any better, or you and Putin, because you know somebody who knows Donald Trump. And if you don't know someone who knows Donald Trump, you certainly know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows Donald Trump. And he met Kim Jong-un and Putin. So anyway, you get the picture. Everyone's connected to everybody. Every Jew is cousin. I don't think there's any Jew out there who's not a close cousin with, not a decently close cousin with any other Jew of similar genetic descent. Now, I will also say about you said about raising prices before. I want to say something. When people are too blank, when someone says, I need a job, what kind of job? Any job. It's very hard to help them find a job. Why? Because any job doesn't help me think. If you say I'm looking for a job as a salesman, okay. Now the next time someone says something about a salesman, my ears could perk up. Okay, maybe I know this guy's the right fit for this job for salesman. When someone says any job, you don't get that. There always has to be something specific. Instead of saying do something, well, how about this? Think about tonight's recording, and think about something, anything. You could take out. Doesn't have to be something I said. It could be something Menachem said, Rabbi Usha said. Doesn't have to be something I said. But take something, even something that wasn't related directly, just some random whatever that came up in do something based on this particular last 2 hours or whatever it was that you spent listening to this. Do something with it. So even if that doesn't end up being the thing that gets you to where you want to go, it'll help you move in that direction. So don't think big picture, what should I do? What kind of business should I go into? Go into violin strings. It doesn't matter. Pick something, pick up as you go through your kitchen or your house, pick up the next thing that catches your fancy, open the refrigerator, say, maybe I should make my own homemade mayonnaise and sell it. Now that may not be what you do, but try to give your brain a place to start humming and whirring and making something happen. Now I want to finish with a story. Agam, you gave me a tall challenge of finishing by saying a story that wraps up everything that we spoke about. If I want to do that, then what I would do is I would say, once upon a time, I knew a guy, a tired younger man, who I'm kind of related to, shtickle in half different ways, and he does it every week. Al Chesed, Al Toiv for Klal Yisrael. Lil Nishmas who?
Nishmas, whoever you want tonight.
No. You do this as a volunteer, Lil Nishmas somebody, if I got it right.
It's really Lil Nishmas, my father-in-law, my wife's father. It was left in a car crash.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. So soll sich mieren, und schon haben wir Aliyah.
Amen.
Das Chis von alle Jeden, wenn geholfen nach dem soll Stein zum Gitten. Okay. So then I would say essentially, and we had a conversation, and this is what we discussed. Then I would get all the things we discussed into the final genius encapsulating moment that you wanted. That's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a story about the Heilige Rebbe Menachem and Werner. The Heilige Seide, multiple times. Rebbe Menachem and Werner. Many Chassidim know the story that one day, when Rosh Hashanah, he said, "The Eir Tzitzit was weiß, wemen megaiten ihr anlegen. The earth is trembling because it knows who's going to be soon put into it. And the next day of Rosh Hashanah, there was another earthquake in Bishtina where he lived. And he said, it sitted wel weiß, wemen megaiten ihr anlegen. And then on Yom Kippur, it was an earthquake. Say it in
English also, so just type it in English.
I did, but maybe not slow enough. Or maybe you're just tired from your Europe trip.
No, I didn't say it again.
The earth is trembling because it knows who is soon going to be placed within it. The first day of Rosh Hashanah, earthquake. He said, second day, the earthquake. He said, I'll say in English, the earth is trembling because it knows who's soon going to be put in it. And Yom Kippur, same thing again, earthquake. And he said, because the earth is trembling, it knows who's going to be put in it. The first day of Sukkot, the Rabbi said, how does the Eibishter Mekayim the mitzvah of Sukkot, the mitzvah of Esrik, the Eibishter keeps the Torah. He takes a tzaddik, a priyei tadar, and that's how he does the mitzvah of Sukkah. That's how he does the mitzvah of Dalad Mina, and he was nifta. Rabbi was nifta the first day of Sukkot. It's a very nice Chassidish story. The Chassidish people listening, the Ingerish Yidden that jump into businesses without thinking twice and put the hundreds of thousands of dollars in because they just assume the guides on Git. We could have a conversation about them and analyze how the place the person comes from, how it affects how they do business. In our the third time I come on this podcast, maybe the fourth. But in any case, they hear the story, Chassidish Hamasa, beautiful Chassidish Hamasa. They're not really misnagdim, but the enikl from misnagdim, when they want to believe them misnagdim, hear the story, they snicker. They say, listen, this content for the first 2 hours was amazing. The last 5 minutes, he killed it. That's fine too. Okay, that's fine too. But I have a cousin, a closer cousin than you, but not such a close cousin. He's an attorney. His name is Reb Kapi Laufer. He lives in Borough Park on 60th Street someplace. And at that point in time, Ukraine was not the country it is today. Now it's already being sliced. But anyway, in the years of Reb Menachem Nedverna, the city of Bishtin was part of a country called Hungary. And he went down, or he wrote to, I don't know exactly, the Hungarian Weather Service. And he asked them to please give him, since the beginning of recording, since the beginning of the time they started keeping records, like they do in Central Park for the snow, all earthquakes that took place in that general area, he wants a list. And they sent him a list. And the list shows only 3 earthquakes with the Goyish dates. And if you match the Goyish dates to the Yiddish dates, you see the first day of Rosh Hashanah is an earthquake, second day of Rosh Hashanah is an earthquake, and Yom Kippur there was an earthquake. Of the year of Menachem Nedverna was nifta. So now, once you see that, and nobody bribed, I assume, the Hungarian Weather Service to go forge historical records, just to Menachem Nedverna's story should be, should have proof. Once you hear the proof, and he published the proof in a kuntrus that he put out, for Menachem Nedverna's Yahrzeit, the proof, suddenly it goes from being a Chassidish Maisa to something proven. And I once wrote about the story in my column in the Hamodia, and I wrote, till you heard the proof, it was a Chassidish Maisa. Once you heard the proof, think about it from a business perspective. Think about it from when you're trying to convince someone something. As soon as you can prove it, it's a whole nother game. It takes a whole nother, you can't argue with the story. It's a proven fact, proven by somebody who has no negiyas to the thing. That's what I want to leave everybody with. Figure out your nimshal. Sometimes you give an nimshal, and you kill the other concepts people were able to develop from it because you spoon-fed it to them. Maybe next time I come on, you'll ask me if I remember having said it, and you remember asking, I'll give it to you then. One of the possible.
I'm working on it. Okay, see everybody next Sunday night, 9:30. We're showing Usha Tauber. Thank you so again. Go down Shachas. We'll speak.
Everybody for coming. Menachem,
people liked it.
It's being recorded. So everyone will see me saying Haidel Hashem. You're welcome.